we get started, let's introduce everyone on this meeting. I'm Sandy Brock. When I call your name, please confirm that you can hear me by verifying that you are present. We'll start with the commissioners. Travis,
I'm here.
thank you. Jonathan,
Present.
thank you. Patrick,
Here, present.
all right, thank you. And we'll move on to staff. Leah,
I'm here.
Jan,
Present.
thank you. Okay. Um, This open meeting of the Conservation Commission is being conducted remotely via Zoom pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12th, 2020 order, as most recently extended on March 29th, 2023. Access information for the public has been provided on the town website. This meeting is being recorded. Please remember to mute your phone or your computer when you are not speaking. This is done on the phone by pressing *6. As chair, I will introduce each speaker on the agenda. Please note that you will not have screen sharing privileges, but staff can display any visuals per your cue. During periods of public comment, participants must use the raise hand icon in the Zoom menu bar to indicate they would like to speak. This is done on the phone by pressing *9 and then pressing *6 to unmute when you are called on. Participants who raise their hand will be recognized one at a time and will be promoted to speak. Finally, each vote taken will be conducted by a roll call vote. As a reminder, the Commission is concerned with state and town wetlands and stormwater regulations. Concerns outside of this purview need to be addressed to the appropriate boards. For example, road conditions must be addressed with the Select Board, and traffic concerns must be addressed with the Planning Board. Anything before we start with public hearings?
I don't think so.
Okay. I have 7:04. Our first one's at 7:05. If I ramble on, we'll hit 7:05. Not quite yet. There we go. The magic clock on my computer says 7:05. Okay. So, pursuant to the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act, the Grafton Wetlands Protection Bylaw, Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing on Tuesday, September 3rd, to act upon a request for determination of applicability for the construction of an in-ground pool at 118 Merriam Road. And who is here to speak to that? If you,
Yeah, Alex Lyon from Lyon Landscape Nursery in Franklin, Massachusetts.
sure thing, you have the floor if you'd like to do a presentation. And remember, Leah or Jan can share anything that you submitted.
Okay. Okay. We're at the property right now, and as you can see, the house is fairly brand new. It's like a brand new house, and the wattles that marking the wetlands are still present on the property. And I made sure that I located any disturbance that we were going to be doing inside of those wattles. The only thing, because the pool was so close to the wetlands, I needed to do a retaining wall on that low side of the pool. And I just thought it was prudent to include the Conservation Committee in what we were up to over here on this project.
Okay, appreciate that. Yeah, this does fall within our jurisdiction. So, anything else to add to that? Otherwise, I'll start with the commissioners.
So the only other concern, the other reason why I'm calling is because of the amount of fill that's going to be taken out. I will be able to use some of the fill in back of the retaining wall, but some fill is going to be taken off site. I haven't really done a calculation how many yards yet until I backfill that retaining wall, but the existing grade is like the base of that rubble retaining wall that was put on the base of the house over there. I can't read the grade on the screen here, but it's really flat down there. So the top of the pool apron is going to be about probably 2 to 3 inches lower than the basement door egress on the house.
Okay.
And
All right.
and
Yeah,
one
go
other
ahead.
thing, this shed that was going to be included in the pool here is no longer, gonna be included.
Okay, so specifically on that shed, you want us to, we can do it one of two ways. If you want us to remove it, we can make sure when we issue any kind of decision that that's not on there. You can actually keep it on there. And if you do not construct it, it doesn't matter. And if in the future they want to construct it, they can. So I'll leave it up to the applicant. Do you want us, I know you saying that you're not going to build it at this point. Is this something you want to leave on the application?
Yes, we'd prefer to leave it on the application.
And basically, when we issue an approval in this case, I'll go into it's a negative determination. That is good for 3 years anyways. So
Okay.
if you do, it isn't like forever, but there is a window there. So, okay. So Leah, any, if you want to do any kind of, just go through your report.
Sure. The only thing I had to add was just that, no trees will be removed. I know that the pool house shows a little bit into the tree line, but I clarified that, with the applicant.
Okay. All right. I will go around the commission and ask if anyone has any questions on this application. Patrick,
No, I don't have any questions.
Jonathan,
No questions.
okay, and Travis.
No questions.
Okay. Fairly straightforward. The next thing we'll do, the only kind of, it's not really a question. I understand that it's just going to be an export site. We'll just put in a condition that says if it is an export site, that material will be appropriately disposed of, per local, state, and federal law. Meaning, you just have to make sure wherever it goes, it's clean and there's no issues with it. That's all.
Sure.
Having said that, the next thing I will do is to open it up to the public. If anyone has any questions or comments on this particular project, please raise your hand. And we'll watch out to see if anyone raises their hand and we'll take public input. Otherwise, we'll get kind of into what the next steps are. So not sure if you're how many requests for determinations you've done, but just for you and your client and also the public. So typically we'll we'll talk about potential conditions, and then we'll either issue what's called a negative determination, which is what you want. A negative determination simply means you do not have to do any other permitting. That basically the project is deemed that is will not have adverse impact. If we were to make a decision of a positive, uh, you would have to actually go to a positive determination. You would have to actually do a full notice of intent. Obviously, we would have to have a reason to go there. But again, I just want to give you that preface just so once we get through this and we vote on this, you understand if we say a negative determination is actually what you're looking for.
Excellent. Thank you.
That's just a little clarification. Sometimes that trips people up. Okay. Leah, you got a couple of recommendations for conditions?
Yep, just two. Well, in addition to the one you talked about for the
Yep.
fill, no trees shall be removed and any pool water shall be discharged away from resource areas.
Right. And then obviously the one that any excess fill to be removed from the site will be disposed of legally. Having said that, I'll go around one more time quickly to see if anyone has any with the commission to see if anyone has any other conditions that anyone wants. It also gives the opportunity if anyone in the public wants to raise their hand. Jonathan, anything else? Any conditions?
Sorry, missed the mute button. Um, are we talking any signage along that line around the edge behind the pool or the little signs, or is that something that's not in play?
Good question. Leah, is this I'm guessing just had a fairly recent, trying to look at a date on here, fairly recent
Yes,
notice of intent, and were there signs on that plan?
so it was a condition that they install no disturb signs. I'm not sure if they fell on this lot at all. Perhaps the applicant can answer that question. They have not fully closed out that order yet, though.
Okay. So as far as Alex, as far as to your knowledge, so this particular site, as you said, it was recently built, fell within the jurisdiction of the wetlands, and so there is an outstanding, at least, Leah, is that a notice of intent or just a RDA for this project? Do you know?
It was an NOI for, it's a handful of houses down a common
Okay.
driveway.
Oh, okay. So there's an outstanding order of conditions for this site based on the construction of the houses along the common driveway. So as part of that, we would have had a condition on there that says that you need to put signs probably along the tree line or the 25-foot no disturb zone. The little 4x4 inch no disturb, basically, signs, so people are aware that you can't get any closer to the wetlands.
Sure.
Has that been put in yet?
No,
Okay. So you just probably, when you're doing this, you will probably want to close out the notice of intent when you finish this, because we'll want to see those things done in the original order of conditions that the original notice of intent, where you got an order condition for the whole little subdivision here, and then that
So,
has certain conditions. Go ahead.
if I can just cut in for 1 second.
Yep.
That order was issued to the developer of this little, I mean, it's not really
Gotcha.
a subdivision, but common driveway, if you will. This is
Yep.
now the homeowner looking to put in a pool.
Okay.
So, maybe, I mean, if the commission is wanting to see signage there one way or the other, if we could just word the condition that, like, if it isn't covered by that order, that they put a few signs behind the pool, and that way I can find out if it was part of the order or not.
Okay.
Yeah,
Uh,
I don't know, if it'd be conditional where we say if it's not covered under the parent order, under this specific order, can it be addressed? I'm just thinking along the back of that retaining wall, if it's dropping off there, that's a natural place where people, where the next homeowner or someone else in the future might have an unknowing expansion into that, whether it's dumping lawn debris and leaf debris or whatever past that into the wetlands. And maybe that creates awareness for that person. So again, if it's tackled under another order and they're put along that line, that tree line or whatever, then I think it's a moot point. It doesn't matter. It's covered. But if it's not, then I wouldn't want to miss the opportunity to put it in here if it's not covered under the other order.
especially since this is so close.
Correct. Yes.
Okay.
That's my take. That was my only other kind of point there, was
Okay.
just didn't see it as a note, but again, that might be because it's in the other order.
All right. Sounds good.
Yeah.
Travis, anything else as far as any conditions or any other questions?
Nope, nothing else.
Okay. So Alex, do you understand that as far as,
yes, the
Um,
question I have on the signage, was that something that was gonna be permanent? Like in perpetuity after the project's over for future homeowners?
correct, correct.
Okay. Was there gonna be like a detail on how you want those posts to be put in the ground and what the message on the sign will be?
So the signs themselves are fairly small, and there's a standard. So you can reach out to, if you end up having to do that, you can reach out to staff and they'll tell you, what they are. And it's just, you do have flexibility um, with how you put it in the ground. It just has to be something that's permanent. We're not going to tell you how big it has to be. In fact, a lot of times, if there's a fence on the back, you can actually, just affix them right to the fence. So that we're pretty, um, flexible in how you put it on, as long as it's a permanent installation and so forth. So,
I'm
um,
imagining a fence to be on the top of that retaining wall because it is significant drop off there. So yeah, attaching to the fence would probably make the most sense.
and that would also work.
Okay,
If they're not, if the original order of conditions for these lots, if they were, if it's not in that, if it's in that, they do it. If not, then you would do it, and we can, the condition will tell you it's every 20 feet or so. And the 4x4 inch signs. And it's basically say,
You just answered my next question.
yep. And the 20 feet is our standard just distance.
Okay,
I mean, generally, to what Jonathan was saying, is we don't want people dumping stuff. We don't want people mowing. We don't, we don't want people expanding closer to the wetlands. And it's just a way, with this particular homeowner, you're going through this process so you have a better understanding. But if next year, for whatever reason, you're moving, you sell it to someone else, we want something there that people say, I wonder what this sign is about. And hopefully they ask the right questions. So, all
excellent.
right. Jan, anyone from the public?
Nothing from the public.
All right, great. Having said that, let's see here. Patrick, did you have any other questions or recommendations for comments?
No, nothing else.
Okay, so based on that, I have nothing else. So do I have a motion to issue a negative determination for 118 Merriam Road?
I'll move to close the hearing and issue negative determination with the conditions as discussed.
Thank you. I have a second.
Second.
Okay, we'll do a roll call vote. Well, Jonathan, you're looking at me, so you go first.
Yes.
Travis,
Yes.
Patrick,
Yes.
I am also a yes. So that's a negative determination. So just reach out to staff and they'll give you the details on when it will be available.
Fantastic. Thank you.
All right, good luck.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night. All right. Next up, we're still on here. So, pursuant to the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act and the Grafton Wetlands Protection Bylaw, Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing to act upon a request for determination of applicability for soil borings and construction of monitoring wells at 60 Main Street. And who's here to present that?
Hi, Madam Chair. My name is Fiona Coughlin. I'm the town planner for the town of Grafton. I'll be doing an introduction, and I'm joined by Katie Wilkins of Ty and Bond, who will also be presenting.
You have the floor.
Great. Thank you so much for your time this evening and for hearing us out on this request for determination of applicability. As I mentioned, my name is Fiona Coughlin. I'm the town planner here, and I'm just going to give a brief overview of how and why we're here at this point before I turn it over to Katie, who will speak much more intelligently to the application. So the owner of the property, Fisherville Redevelopment Corporation, approached the planning department about a grant opportunity through the Executive Office of Energy and Environmental Affairs to update the Phase 1 inspection, the Phase 2 inspection investigation report, and to assist with permitting documentation for Fisherville Dam. The commission is probably aware of this property and its history. However, what we're focusing on is starting the design and permitting processes by gathering this important data and to further develop the conceptual design alternatives so we can bring this dam ultimately into compliance with safety regulations. So the process has been unfolding quite swimmingly. We issued an RFP to which Ty and Bond had the most competitive response. We entered into a contract with them, and they have been starting their work and moving right along. But as part of this process, we do need to get updated data to move on to the next step. So that is why we are here this evening. So I won't keep droning on. I'll turn it over to Katie, but I am happy to answer any questions that the commission has after Katie's presentation and provide any additional insight. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Fiona. Leah, would you be able to share page 22 of the PDF? Just the aerial site photo of the project area, just kind of help for a reference. Awesome, thank you. So as Fiona mentioned, the work that we're doing right now is geotechnical borings for some longer term analysis of what the site conditions are to help kind of facilitate and support the design of some alternatives to make sure the dam is brought into compliance. So the more information we know about the sub features of the soil in this site, the better we can design what we need to do for overall maintenance and structural stability. So the proposed project plans to do 4 soil geotechnical borings and install up to 3 monitoring wells. All of it the soil will be pulled out, identified, making sure we characterize the soil condition and also evaluate just overall conditions of the soil and allow the monitoring wells to be monitored on a regular basis. The 3 of the borings will be located on the west side of Blackstone River, and 1 will be located on the east side of the Blackstone River, right on the edge of the actual Fisherville Dam. The embankment is where most of the other borings, where you can see B101, B102, and B103 are located. All are located within the 200-foot riverfront area, but given that this site is a historic mill complex, it does not have the same sort of regulatory resource areas and performance standards for riverfront area. So that is beneficial there, but it is also located within the 100-foot buffer zone and the 25-foot local no disturb, all of those locations. The access to borings 101 to 103 will be off of Main Street. There's a few gates in the fence there that they can easily track through the site and get up to those spots without impacting resource areas other than the buffer zones. And then access to boring 104 on the west side or east side, sorry, will be from a private property that we've coordinated with for access. And there's a nice access road to that side of the dam that's helped with maintenance in the past. So it is easily accessible, and the tracked drill rig should be able to get to the site without much of an issue. We've been working with the property owner and making sure everything is ready to go and accessible, and it should be a pretty straightforward process. We will be installing erosion controls around the locations of the borings, kind of ringing them around as they are close to both the Fisherville Pond and the edge of the river, both the Blackstone Canal and the Blackstone River. So if any sort of drilling spoils get removed, they stay within that ringed section of erosion control. Any of the drill cuttings will be placed back on the site in the hole to the extent possible, and everything else will be removed off site or placed in the very small space in the middle of the parcel within outside of jurisdictional resource areas. I'm trying to think. Any sort of disturbance, ground disturbance afterwards will be stabilized with seed and straw mulch, and the work itself should only take a couple days to actually complete, given ground conditions. If there's a lot of rock or other material that's hit, then it'll take a little longer, but the anticipated to only be a couple days.
Anything else?
I believe that's it. It's hopefully a pretty straightforward geotechnical analysis to kind of further the design. And when we get more information and a plan to make the repairs and come up with a plan, then we'll be back in front of the commission for a notice of intent for some more substantial work.
All right, thank you. So I'll go around to the commissioners to see if they have any questions. Jonathan, anything?
Not at this moment, no.
Okay. Travis.
So Leah or Sandy, this property is exempt from the Riverfront Act, or is it the activity?
It's I'll let Leah
both?
have her take on it too, but I think it's a combination of things. It's because of why it's being done. So it's a water dependent, the dam itself is water dependent. There's safety issues here and a few other things, but there are exceptions for this type of investigation work. Because it's a dam, there's other jurisdictional areas under dam safety and a few other places. I don't know off the top of my head if there's specifically within the Wetlands Protection Act of any exceptions. I don't know, Lee, if you have any more to add to that?
Yeah, so I listed a finding, in my notes that normally this is a minor activity that we don't usually see before us because it's temporary in nature and it meets the provisions of the act there, but they wanted to make sure they had the paperwork in place and go through the process anyway.
Okay. All right, Patrick, any questions?
No, I don't have anything.
Yeah, some of my questions are more just general, just to kind of understand. I mean, obviously, this dam is under, state jurisdiction, and I'm just curious if what is precipitating this type of geotech investigation. Is it routine maintenance, or is it other issues going on with this particular dam?
Fiona, I don't know if you want to answer, but normally, so phase one inspections are done on all of these regulated dams. And usually if there's some sort of deficiency identified in the phase one inspection, the Office of Dam Safety will order a phase two inspection to be completed. And that's just a more in-depth investigation on what's going on with the impoundment, what if there's any deficiencies in the spillway itself, any of the training walls. And then you then have to pull together a plan on how you're going to address those. So there could be
Gotcha.
a variety of things. I did not look into the actual phase two report to see what this specific dam, the issues are at this point in time. Most of that will probably be presented in the actual notice of intent once the design of what the remedies are going to be. So more information will come out from there,
Right.
but I'm sure Fiona would share if there's anything in particular that came up.
And again, this is step one. I get it. It's your
Yeah,
phase
yeah.
one. It's your investigation. I get that part.
Yep.
And just as a clarification, the monitoring wells that you're putting in there, you're monitoring groundwater. You're not really monitoring for any contaminations or anything else.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. And that's just a clarification for if people happen to be listening.
Mhm.
Okay. I think you answered all of my other questions through your presentation. One of the questions was about access, making sure that gets stabilized afterwards. Yeah, the borings, I mean, you said you're going to put erosion control around the area, which is big enough so you to contain anything, but the borings themselves is 8 or 10 inches. I mean, it's a drill rig getting in there that does more impact to the surface, not so much the
Right.
drilling itself.
Mhm.
Having said that, I'll go once around again if anyone has any other questions or conditions. Other than that, I will open it up at this point to the public. And if you have any questions for this project, please feel free to raise your hand and we will call on you once you do. So I'll do one more round, see if anyone has any potential conditions before I get there. Leah, can you go through your recommendations of
Sure.
yeah.
I have one question. It sounds like dewatering will not be necessary because it's so small. Is that
Yes.
correct?
Yeah. No, we're not anticipating to need any sort of dewatering.
Okay. Other than that, I just had that they do have a waiver request for work within the no disturb, because they kind of can't help it. And I have a finding pointing to the section of the regulations that note that this is a temporary activity with negligible impacts that are necessary for planning and design purposes. And then, do you want me to also go through conditions?
Why don't you go through the conditions before I go back around to the commission?
Okay, I have erosion control shall be installed between the boring and well locations in resource areas. Any disturbed areas shall be stabilized upon project completion. Excess fill shall be removed from the site or placed outside the buffer zone. And access to the eastern portion of the site shall occur through the existing route off 16 Cross Street. And I added that with like a copy of that owner's authorization, just for the record.
All right. Thank you for that. So I'll go around one more time. Anything else to add, Jonathan, as far as conditions or any other questions?
Does it need to be done at a specific time when it's low flow, or is this far enough away from the actual water area. And I'm sorry if I missed that, if that was said. But is this done over a specific time?
It can be done anytime, just before the ground freezes.
Okay. No, nothing else.
All right, thank you. Travis,
Nope, nothing else from me.
thank you. And Patrick,
No, nothing else.
I don't have any other questions. We'll probably see you again in the future, but you need to do this first. And let me go back to Jan. Anything from the public?
Nothing from the public.
So we have nothing from the public. So this is an RDA. We've already gone through the recommendations. First of all, the waiver request. We need to do a motion on the waiver request. And just for my own education, Leah, this is a town project, so there's no fee.
Correct.
Okay, so there's no fee because it is a town project. So, so can I have a motion to grant a waiver for work in the no disturb zone?
And this is not part of the minor activity. That's separate.
No, this is under our local bylaw, so we need
Okay,
to
so it's
grant
just
that
the
under
no
that.
disturb. So I'll move to grant a waiver for work in the no disturb buffer for
All right.
61 Main Street.
Do I have a
Second.
second? Okay, a motion, a second, roll call vote. Travis,
Yes.
Jonathan,
Yes.
Patrick,
Yes.
and I am also a yes, so the motion carries for the waiver. Okay. So that's that. And then as far as that goes, we've already reviewed conditions. So do I have a motion to issue a negative determination for 61 Main Street?
I'll move to issue a negative determination with the conditions as discussed for 61 Main Street.
Thank you. Second.
Second.
We got a motion and a second. Roll call vote. Travis,
Yes.
Patrick,
Yes.
Jonathan.
Yes.
I am also a yes. The motion carries. Good luck in your monitoring and boring excavation stuff.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
All right. We can keep on going. We're still okay on time. Okay. This one here, that's that. Okay, next up, 725. Pursuant to the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act, Grafton Stormwater Management Bylaw, Grafton Wetlands Protection Bylaw, Conservation Commission will act upon a notice of intent application for Grafton Stormwater Bylaw permit application for Grafton Wetlands Bylaw permit for the reconstruction of the roadway at George Hill Road, Fay Mountain Road, and Soap Hill Road. And who is here to discuss that?
Eric Olson from VHB, here with Greg Russell and Luke Bocher, also from VHB.
You have the floor.
All right. Am I able to present?
No, but you can ask Jan and she'll bring up anything that you've submitted to us.
Okay, that's fine. I can just kind of go off the cuff. So so this is the George Hill Road reconstruction project, the NOI hearing. This is the applicant is the town of Grafton. The project location is the length of George Hill Road, Soap Hill Road, and Fay Mountain Road. So the proposed work is the reconstruction of George Hill Road. It's due to the stormwater conditions along the road, it's deteriorating. Portions of the road are kind of falling apart, and the stormwater doesn't go off it very well. So we're proposing the reconstruction of George Hill Road, which is about 1.93 miles. We'll be widening it by less than one lane to be a consistent 20 feet. We'd be repairing the existing pavement and installing a new closed drainage system. And then along Fay Mountain Road and Soap Hill Road, we'd be doing pavement reclamation and installation of a berm to control runoff and drain structure and pipe replacements. So you saw the impact. So we will be impacting Bank, BVW, riverfront area, and land underwater. There will be 465 linear feet of permanent impacts to bank through new impervious surface, head walls, and riprap culvert outlets. On that particular one,
Can you,
yes.
sorry to interrupt you, but can you
Yep.
direct us to some plans so that we can follow what you're doing? So
Oh, yeah,
we have
sure.
we have the
It's
plan set, but it's just on the locust page.
it's a little bit it's a little bit tough. I mean, you can scroll through the plans, but it is a long linear project. So when I'm kind of going through these impacts, it's hard to look at one particular page. But if you just want to pick a page with the roadway right there. Yep.
So, and if you do any kind of presentation materials, just forward it to Jan or Leah, and we have to per state, anything that's presented, we need a copy of. And so it's
Okay.
easy for us to present things. We just need to have it ahead of time. That's all.
Okay, my apologies. I usually am able to get like control to present.
Lessons learned on our part. This is much more successful.
I can see that. I can see that. There's a lot of, yes, there's a lot of learning curves with all the different formats.
So if you
Yes.
go to sheet,
So
sheet five, Leah.
I'll just run through this quickly. So the 456 linear feet of impacts to bank will require an Army Corps filing as well. So we will be doing that concurrently with this filing. There'll be about 2014 square feet of permanent impacts to BVW, as well as 1,284 square feet of permanent impacts to land underwater. So the plan is to mitigate for that. Our mitigation measures included in the filing were robust. They included design and construction methods to try to avoid as many impacts as we could, erosion and sediment controls during construction, and then the big one would be the compensation for any permanent impacts. We are proposing 3,300 square feet of BVW replacement. And as you noticed in the filing, we do not have a location yet. Greg can talk more to that in a second, but we are working with the town on that. We think we're honing in on one, but it will be located, within the same watershed, because we are currently in an area of critical environmental concern. And so one of the big things is we want that area to also be within that same watershed and as close to the impacts that we are having as possible. So, and I think we're working towards that. Greg, do you want to speak to that at all?
Yeah, so my name is Greg Russell. I'm the project manager for VHB. And Leah, if you want to move ahead to sheet 5 of the roadway plans. Or, sorry. Keep going. And you'll start seeing the color.
I'm sorry,
Mhm.
which sheet did you say?
Sorry, on this bottom one.
Yeah, it's coming up, the colored one.
Right. So just to quickly go back to what Eric was saying, this is obviously it's a linear project. So wherever we have impacts, we kind of call them out by color. And they're not continuous along the entire length. But like Eric said, we do have approximately 3,300 square feet of wetland replication that we're looking to construct as part of this project. And in speaking with DPW, we're looking at Pell's Farm area on Soap Hill as a potential option, which would also kind of be in conform with the town's stormwater management plan, as it would. This is an area that has as part of the MS4 permit, and would assist in allowing some additional stormwater treatment off of, from the roadway off of Storm Hill, or Sokol. And this would be kind of in the general vicinity of where the culvert, where DPW had replaced a failing culvert, earlier this year. So that is one area that we're looking at. Yeah, again, we're open to other areas, but like Eric said, we were looking to keep it in the same watershed.
Yeah.
And obviously have something that's town owned.
I understood that you have within the right of way to do any work.
Yep.
Therefore, you're looking at other owners that would be, you know, friendly to having stuff done, and the town property is probably a logical choice.
So, but in general, you know, like Eric said, we're trying to minimize the impacts. You know, obviously, I'm sure everyone knows it's a very narrow road. So, you know, we've kept it to, you know, generally with the, you know, we're aiming for 20 feet. You can see that on here, we have the dimensions. 10-foot lanes either side of, it's not going to be striped. And then we've tried to vary the profile to match as best we can, to kind of marry up with the existing grades. There are several existing cross kind of connections. It's not really a formal closed drainage system currently. We have kind of swales that have been dug out and that are captured in drop inlets and then sent under the road and discharged across the street. So we're kind of trying to berm up the road, kind of remove most of those swales and collect everything, treat with leaching basins where feasible, and then discharge to the existing outlets.
So in general, just obviously we're familiar with George Hill Road and some of the issues that have happened. So you're looking to do a new closed drainage system.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So just for instance, the I think the looking right in the middle here over George Hill, there's a series of 2 catch basins and a manhole, and then there's a second manhole just on the curb line, which would represent a leaching basin. We haven't taken credit for any of the stormwater treatment from these leaching basins, just because we have to get some test pits, and the intent was to have the contractor do those test pits during construction.
And again, this is an old, I'm guessing, 2 Rod Road or some other variable width and all that kind of good stuff.
Yeah.
Any thoughts of doing any kind of green infrastructure?
We're
Linear.
trying to maintain the swales as best we can. You know, the issue, you know, we're already having significant tree impacts. You know, so any linear infrastructure off the side of the road would require that many more trees being taken down.
Gotcha.
And we will be, after we kind of made a decision that we'd discuss, you know, kind of these issues with the Concom first before applying for a scenic road permit, which is required. Yeah, for the most part, the right of way is kind of constrained by the walls and by the grades. You know,
Gotcha.
this road, is, I'm sure everyone's familiar, has a fairly steep upland side, which doesn't really allow for much getting roadway drainage to it, and downstream again, or the hillside again, similar. And we're trying to reuse the existing of those existing cross connections to minimize impacts to abutters.
Anything else to add? I mean, we
Um,
still gotta, we still need to go. I mean, we don't have all the information that we need at the moment, but
Yep.
but
Um,
again, if there's anything else you want to present.
So, Eric, can you-
Yeah, so as you probably saw, DEP did have some comments. I am going to formally respond to those comments, but I just wanted to see if you had any questions on those or if you wanted to discuss anything. We
Okay.
can run through each of them now if you like.
No, before we get to there, what I'll do is I'll have Leah give her agent report, and then we can go through the commissioners and so forth. So Leah, do you want to do? I know that you didn't get everything, but why don't you give what you have so far?
I was actually mainly just gonna ask, if they were going to do a letter for the DEP comments, which he just covered. And I know that they're working out, where to put their application. So I don't have anything else right now.
Okay.
There was also one comment from a resident that I will also address this week.
Okay. All right. I'm gonna just go quickly around with the commissioners, just see if they have any initial kind of comments or questions. Jonathan,
No, I don't have any questions.
Travis,
Do we have a project, or will we have a project like this peer reviewed?
that's a great question. I had the same thing. It's not a small, it's linear, but it covers a lot, and there's a lot of history on this particular as far
Yeah,
as
my
stormwater goes.
I'm trying to scan through this stuff, and it looks like we're going to be adding water to Cider Mill Pond, Misco Brook, which I think Cider Mill Pond's the lady that's been in front of the commission a couple times with
Gotcha. With the
flooding
flooding, not her
concerns.
fault. Yep.
So if we're going from an open drainage system to a closed drainage, are we going to be adding
Yeah. And
stormwater to those water bodies?
that's something the applicant may not be aware of, or the designers may not be
Yeah.
aware of. Is some issues based on one of the locations that some of the drainage from here discharges to.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a good one. Let's take that up for the whole commissioners. Do you have anything else, Patrick? Excuse me, anything else, Travis? And I'll go to Patrick next.
No, nothing else.
And Patrick.
I don't have anything else at this time.
All right, thanks. So Leah, do we have town projects go and have peer reviewed?
I believe we have before, yeah. Are you
Okay.
looking for, engineering peer review or wetland peer review or both?
Both, actually.
Okay.
All right, and I'm just kind of sorry, I'm looking through my notes. You also mentioned that you'll need an Army Corps filing, which means that you mentioned impacts to land underwater and the scenic road, which is a different issue. Obviously, it's not our jurisdiction, but it will potentially impact what we're looking to do or looking what you are doing on the roadway. And then, so I guess we can move to the DEP letter and just to do an overview of their comments.
Yeah, you want me to run through the comments?
Yes, we don't have to spend detailed comment by comment, but just
All right, the first one is the project narrative and plans indicate that there are 6 stream crossings that will be replaced. The narrative calls these upgrades, however, the proposed changes include increasing pipe length and openness, embedding pipes into the stream bed, etc. Please update the WPA Form 3 to reflect that 6 stream crossings are included in the project.
that's fairly straightforward. You'll have a response for that.
Yes, we will.
Okay, keep on. I'm just
Um,
seeing if there's going to be anything else that
Yep.
has any other questions.
Okay, the applicant proposes to alter 465 linear feet of bank resource area. Mass DEP notes that the review threshold requiring a MIPA filing for bank is 500 linear feet. So I think more just a note saying that if you increase your linear feet too much, you might trip MIPA. So, but we don't plan to do that, so we don't trip MIPA. So, there's not really a response required for that, other than we will remain at 465. The next one is the applicant proposes 3,300 square feet. Basically, I can just shorten this one. They're basically saying, please give us the mitigation area. So it's a a long comment, but it pretty much says, please provide us with the mitigation area. So, which we will do.
Yep.
The next one, table 6, shows increases for the 2-year, 10-year, 100-year, 24-hour storms for design point 2, design points. So do you want to get into any some of these? Most of the rest of them are stormwater comments. So I don't know if you want to.
So let's keep it a little bit high level, especially if
Okay.
we're going to have a peer review. But basically, so you have one design point that's going up, and is there a reason for that, or
Um.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
can
Greg.
jump in. Yeah, Luke Boucher, VHP. I'm the water resources engineer. So yeah, basically, we tried to mimic as best we could the existing drainage patterns. Like, we do have some constraints where some of these parts of the road are really flat and undulating. So we don't really have as many opportunities to really just set up a trunk line and discharge everything exactly where.
oh, you don't want to
um,
say trunk line to me. You don't want to go old school here. You want to be using green infrastructure and diversifying and basically splitting up instead of putting everything in a big pipe.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
probably
and
not the thing that we want to do.
Yep, and so I guess one of the things though, like Eric and Greg mentioned earlier, is basically what we're trying to do is reuse as many of the existing discharge points as possible, and really that's to minimize our clearing and resource areas, and in riverfront area and in the buffer zone itself. It's a really steep drop off on the downhill side. At some of these locations, and then you're in the wetland, so to create new outfalls where it's just straight wetland impacts, it's riverfront area clearing, it's grading in the riverfront area to cut it down to be able to daylight something. So that's essentially what our strategy is really to try to mimic the existing conditions as best we could and reuse as many of those existing outfalls.
While at the
And
same
I
time preventing all of the erosion that's been happening.
Right. And a lot of that erosion is, so what we're seeing is on that high side of the road, right? Like essentially you've got you've got the road, and then you've got a roadside ditch on the high side, right? So you've got all the flow coming in from the high side, all those properties to the east, as well as the road are getting picked up by that roadside ditch. And so what you're seeing a lot of is that roadside ditches. It's in most places, it's very steep into the roadside ditch where so you're getting this like really 90-degree cut right at the edge of pavement. So that's obviously like a safety hazard, but you're also, with the flow running there, you're getting undercutting of the pavement. And in areas where that roadside ditch isn't there, what you're getting is just the pavement running along. You're getting the water running along the pavement and essentially eroding the edge, right? So you're getting all of that pavement loss on the side. Anyway, so by filling that, by widening this road, and the road currently isn't really, in most places, is not really wide enough to fit 2 cars passing each other, as I'm sure you guys are all aware. The only side that you can really widen is on that ditch side. So what we're doing is, what we're gonna it's gonna be essentially asphalt curb or Cape Cod berm. I can't recall which one we're going with here, but like that's gonna keep that water on the pavement as opposed to running in that interface between the pavement and the adjacent soil, which is really causing most of your pavement damage along this whole stretch. But by doing so, we need inlet structures. There's not really space in the right of way between the essentially retaining, like the stone walls, to incorporate even linear type green infrastructure. So that's our strategy here is to do our best to incorporate where we can leaching basins. And part of the trouble with this road being so narrow is we can't dig a test pit in the road without shutting the road down through traffic.
So just kind of a general question. I know that you haven't been able to do soil testing. That makes sense. Understand why. Just based on public information as far as soils, information and mapping, what is the general condition of the soils? What hydraulic group is it? Hydrological group is it?
I think it varies throughout. I can't recall off the top of my head. My bigger concern was depth of bedrock along
Okay.
here. So that I feel like is probably going to be our biggest hurdle. Is going to be, you know, where if bedrock is 4 feet down, we can't really do a leaching basin. You know, there's
Right.
no. So that's kind of, I think, our biggest constraint here.
The
And we
only
do
other
have. Sorry, go ahead.
I'm sorry, the only other thing that you may want to consider, and has to be based on the soils, is instead of just doing leaching basins, is do perforated pipes
Mhm.
and
Off of the
basically
catch
have
basins.
and basically have trenches as opposed to just a basin. And again, it's trying to figure out where it's applicable, I guess, as
Mhm.
opposed to that's not a general change these to this, but it's more just taking an opportunity where you have it.
Yep, understood.
And I will say we did do soil borings, you know, so along the road, where we were able to. So the leaching basins that are shown are shown in areas where we did not encounter rock as part of the borings. Now, obviously, those borings are only a couple inches wide, so
Yep. It's
knowing,
yeah.
and knowing my luck with encountering rock, I'm sure it's right next to where we drilled. But so we did. That's kind of how we went with selecting these based on that and the profile of the ordinance.
Correct. All right. Anything else as far as the DEP?
There are
Not
four
to
more
get off on a
comments.
tangent. Yeah.
Yep, four more comments. I'll just run through quickly. Next one is also storm water related. Calculations of recharge volume under existing conditions, required recharge volume, and recharge volume under proposed conditions are now provided to demonstrate compliance with standard 3 to the maximum extent practicable. TSS removal worksheets and calculations for required water quality volume are now provided to demonstrate compliance with standard 4 to the maximum extent practicable. And again, Luke will talk to this
Yeah.
one.
Yeah, so it's a similar thing, right? Like we're really hoping we can incorporate these leaching basins in, but we can't take credit for the treatment or the recharge until we know that they're 100% going to be in, right? Like in terms of like a strategy here, like we can't take credit for all of those and then during construction we find out that half of them aren't going to be feasible. Then we got to come back to you like ASAP because we're in construction. So our approach was to, you know, show what we think is a potential, but not take credit for it because we don't have the seasonal high groundwater or soils information, other than what we see from our the drilling, you know, which is equipment that takes up, you know, a fair amount less space, and the NRCS soils maps.
I would also just say that, this is an ongoing issue on this roadway for drainage. You may, even if, and again, you may not be able to take credit for it. Groundwater tends to fluctuate quite a bit, and you may still be able to get infiltration during some parts of the year, even though you can't take credit for it. So sometimes, yeah, you can't, it is like, but you can actually have additional things. And we all know that the actual calculations we use are, if anything, a comparison of existing to proposed and has very little to do with reality.
I
So,
agree. I appreciate that that sentiment.
Yeah, so just to understand, it's the fix that counts as opposed to, yes, you have to meet the regulations, saying
Mhm.
all of that to maximum extent practical, but sometimes introducing a system, even though for the regulations it may not be able to take credit for, may be appropriate based on your professional judgment. I'll leave it like that.
Perfect.
All right, the next one is in regards to leaching basins. It basically says the applicant states that approximately 12 leaching basins are proposed, but then states that the feasibility of each cannot be confirmed without full test pit data. The applicant should provide that data to the Mass DEP and Commission and confirm whether leaching basins will be incorporated into the design of the project. So we pretty much just talked about that, and that will
Yep.
be our answer to them. The next one is discussing the O&M plan. The operation and maintenance plan provided does not include all the elements required and listed in the stormwater checklist. So we're in the process of going through that to make a detailed response to that question, but we will provide them with the data they're looking for. And the last one is just a statement. It says a 401 water quality certification may be required for the project. The project qualifies for a 401 certification under the Army Corps of Engineers general permit, provided that the project meets certain conditions outlined in sections 314 CMR 9.03 and 9.04. And I looked into it, and we do meet those conditions. So when we file for the Army Corps pre-construction notification, we will be covered, for the 401 water quality certification.
All right, thank you for that.
You bet.
Probably back to the commissioners, and I think back to Travis's question is whether we should have this peer reviewed based upon kind of the past issues to trying to fix in a constrained area, trying to be somewhat creative in that approach. It probably is worthwhile to have that information both for the applicant but also for the Conservation Commission. So I'll go around to the commissioners to get their thoughts. Travis, you brought it up.
Yeah, I still think it's a good idea.
All right, Jonathan.
I agree with Travis's request and sentiment there, but no other questions or comments beyond that.
Thank you. And Patrick.
Same, I agree with the concept.
All right. Leah, do you have anything else to add?
Nope.
Okay. So obviously, this is the beginning of the conversation. At this point, I would like to open this up to the public. If anyone online has any comments or questions, please raise your hand. We'll be able to call on you and you'll be able to ask those questions. But also, based on this conversation, obviously, I shouldn't say obviously, I guess the question is, will you be requesting a continuance to our next hearing?
Yes, we will.
Okay. So, Jan, anyone raising their hands?
Yes, we have Erin Anderson raising their hand. I'm going to promote them to talk.
All right. Sounds good.
Hi, yes, this is Erin Anderson. Can you hear me?
Yes. And what's your address?
132 George Hill Road.
Thank you very much. Do you have any questions or comments?
I submitted a question or a comment to the commission earlier, and I know Eric referenced that he had received a question from the public, and I'm wondering if that was mine. And if he could talk to that. If not, then I can mention it.
Yes, I can speak to that. So, so your question was in regards to invasive species that are located along the road in your area?
Yes.
Okay. So in general, what we control is the project area that we're working in, and nothing outside of it, right? So, so when we conduct this project, widen the roadway and install, any infrastructure, most of the work that we'll be doing will be expanding the roadway and installing new impervious surface. There will probably be some amount of areas that will be restabilized permanently with grass. So in those areas during project closeout, while the project is still in our hands and before we get our certificate of compliance, we will be monitoring those areas for any invasive species and can remove them and control them. Once we get a certificate of compliance, then it kind of goes into the operation and maintenance plan and out of our hands and into the town's hands. But that is something we are looking out for. When it comes to anything that's outside of our project footprint, we can't be responsible for that.
Certainly,
just-
I do understand that. I'm just wondering about when you actually remove invasive species. Are you following the Massachusetts invasive species guidelines in terms of removal? Because I know that there are issues with, from what I've learned, because of all the invasive species on our property, there are issues with just removing them because they just grow back. So you actually have to sort of treat them when you remove them. And I'm wondering if you're following any of those guidelines.
So just as kind of what the commission has kind of jurisdiction and so forth. Obviously, if there's wetlands and invasives, we routinely require, some sort of plan, and that plan usually is not just during a construction season. It's usually 5 or 10 years long to really properly, remove invasives. It's not an easy thing. I think the biggest challenge here is the width of the actual right of way, because that's the property of the town. So that's where it gets a little bit challenging. I'll give you just an example. If like the roadway swale has invasive plants in it, and if the project is going to be doing something to that swale, whether reducing the size or changing it, those invasive plants will be taken out. But like on certain areas where you're crossing or adjacent to a wetlands and you have an invasive plant issue in that wetlands, the town can't go beyond what their property is. So, again, we haven't gotten to the point yet of having, so when we were talking about a peer review, and so there's two components of that peer review. One is doing the stormwater, which, just on a site like this, because of the constraints, the challenging design. So we want to have a professional engineer take a review that. The second part of that is having our peer review, who's a wetland scientist, taking a look at the wetland areas to, one, make sure they delineate correctly, but also to have comment on things like invasive plants and potential things like that. So we'd be looking for the additional information. But what I do want to be clear about is I know we're constrained with the property lines. And if you have potentially invasive plants on your own property, then you understand the challenges for invasive plants. But I just want to be clear on kind of the jurisdiction that we have as a Conservation Commission based on what the project is in front of us, which basically is a linear project within the right of way of the roadway, which has its own challenges. So I don't know if that answers your question, but I appreciate bringing it up because obviously we're, as a commission, very concerned about invasive plants and would love to see it be removed. I just don't know if that's part of this project, or if we can even, from a commissioner standpoint, if we can require it if it's not within the right of way.
So I completely agree and understand, and I'm dealing with it on my own property through a professional company so that it's all done correctly. And so I understand that property owners have to do their own property thing. It's just that I do know that in that culvert, right, there are invasive species already in there, and I just want to make sure that they're removed within the area that you can remove, that they're removed within the guidelines that the state provides.
And that's one reason why we will have our wetland scientists also do a peer review, because those are the exact same things you'll look at, is wherever there's an intersection between this project and resource areas.
That's perfect. Thank you.
Yep. All right, Jan, anything else as far as comments or questions from the public?
Nothing from the public.
Okay.
Oh, actually, we have a telephone number ending in 6292. I'll promote them to speak.
Sure. If you could unmute yourself and actually give your name and address, and please ask the question. So if you're on the phone for 508-839-6292, you need to unmute, which is *6. Jan?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Oh, okay. This is Deborah Aslin, and I'm at 56 George Hill Road.
Yes.
And my question is there a time frame for the construction?
That's a great question, and I'll let's see what the schedule is right now for the project. So if someone from VHB can respond to that.
So the goal, and this is all permit, based on permit timelines and everything. The goal would be to start construction next year. Depending on when next year will depend on when we get various permits, and when we were able to solicit a contractor.
So so basically what you're saying is that you have other permits like the Army Corps that you have to
Yes.
submit. There's a question whether you have to do scenic road permit and those type of things.
Yes. We
And
definitely
so
have to do that.
Yeah, so you have a permit process, and then you have it to go out to bid. And I don't know what the current bidding cycle is, probably 3 months or something, or
No,
less.
I mean, we can do it in less, and then obviously there are utility poles that are gonna have to get moved.
Have fun with that.
Yes.
So
PCN process seems to be the longest lead. It's a little bit of an unknown with a 3 to 6 month possibly period or time frame. So hopefully the shorter end of that.
right. So I guess that gives you an idea of the fact that there's the design / permitting / bidding processes over this winter, and then you start. Do you have just a preliminary estimate of the construction duration?
It'll likely be a multi-year process, and will depend. The goal is going to have to be, we're gonna, there's a lot of coordination here that goes with the school buses, and stuff like that. So there's going to have to be a lot of coordination with that. But so just because it's such a small, narrow road, there's not a lot of space to work. It ends up being a slower process. So it's going to be, I would say, at least 2 years.
Okay. Does that answer that question for you?
Yes, thank you.
All right. Any other questions? Anything else, Jan, from the public?
Nothing further from the public.
Okay, let me go around to the Conservation Commission to see if anything else is from them before we kind of move on. Travis.
Nope, nothing else from me.
Jonathan.
Nothing.
Patrick.
Nope, nothing.
I am also good. So Leah, anything for you to add at this point?
Nope.
Okay, and we don't have anything, Jan, from the public anymore.
Correct.
All right, thank you. And then, so Eric, my understanding is you're requesting continuance to our next hearing, or that's up to you.
Yes, that is correct. When is that? Is it 2 weeks or a month?
This is the first, so it's 2 weeks. We're back into the twice a month schedule now that we're back in the fall.
Okay.
Sorry. Fine. Sorry for the cat.
No, that's
fur.
okay. I think, yeah, we'll do the 2 weeks, and at that point we can give you an update on where we are. DEP comments will be done by that time, and hopefully we'll be moving closer to honing in on a mitigation side, because that's really the key piece of information you need right now is a mitigation plan. Would you plan on waiting to do the peer review until you have that mitigation plan, or would you get I guess you get the engineering review going, right? And
Yep.
maybe wait on the wetland side until you have the mitigation site?
Yeah, Leah, it would take a few weeks anyways for us to get the peer review on board.
Right.
Okay.
So that may timing wise may work out, but we can also, even if we get our peer reviewers on board, we can tell them, hey, we need to wait until this is here.
All right.
You know,
I'd say for
so
now, continue us to 2 weeks and we'll put our heads together. If we have a better plan that it's better to continue a little bit further out until all this is organized, we can do that, but we'll be in touch offline.
and that's fine. Obviously, it's up to you to if you want to request another continuance, that's fine.
Okay.
Just for the public that's in attendance. So what we're doing now is continuing this hearing to a date certain, which would be in 2 weeks, which would make that the 17th, correct, Leah? Okay, so this will be continued to the September 17th. If the applicant then requests another continuance, we would then continue it to another date certain. I would suggest for the public is to check the town's website to see if the actual hearing is going to be held on the 17th or it gets continued again. All right, having said that, Leah, anything else that we need to mention tonight?
Nope.
All right. So do I have a motion to continue this hearing until September
I'll-
7th? Go ahead.
I'll move to continue the hearing for George Hill Road repairs until 9/17.
Second.
Right. We have a motion and a second. Roll call vote. Travis,
Yes.
Jonathan,
Yes.
Patrick.
Yes.
I am also a yes. The motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank
All
you.
right.
Thank you all.
Okay. So, Creeper Hill Road's a continuance.
So that's one of the ones that we need to talk about.
Okay. So,
Um,
yeah, so let's chat about that before I read it in.
Okay, so this is another linear project along New England Power's right of way, and it goes through many towns. So the Grafton bylaws require all the butters within 300 feet to be notified, including anyone across town lines. So they had, I think it was a total of 4 abutters into abutting towns that received their own notices from with their own town's info, but they didn't receive abutter notifications with Grafton's information.
Okay.
So my suggestion was to not receive any testimony tonight, but if we can open and continue to the 17th, they said that they can notify those remaining 4 folks ahead of the 17th to bring that into compliance with abutter notification requirements.
I think one key component of this is under the local bylaw. It's not under DEP, correct? It's the 300 feet.
The 300 feet is local, yes.
Yep. So, okay, which is fine. I think we have more flexibility under the local as far as this process.
Okay.
So, my understanding simply is that complete notification wasn't done under the local bylaw. A majority of notifications were done except for these particular 4 people, 4 properties. So the suggestion is that we open up and read the hearing into it, and then we do not take any testimony, and then we just immediately continue it to that. So let me first go around the commission very quickly, if you're comfortable with that. Patrick. So this is a procedural thing. So we
Yeah.
don't want to be outside of what the notification is, because that's part of procedure.
I mean, I don't see any issue with it. But I'm not maybe as familiar with the exact wording of.
And trust me, it's not something that's common that comes up. So we're trying to do what we feel is the best. And, based on the bylaw and the intent of notifying 300 people within, or properties within 300 feet, that hasn't been done. But instead of making everyone go back and notify everyone, we'll open the hearing, we'll continue it to a date certain, so they notify those 4 property owners, and then the next hearing is when we start up again. So,
Well, I guess anyone that intended to be at the hearing today would in theory be aware that it would be.
so if they're attending it, we'll open it and we'll explain that, and they'll know
Right.
that. If
Right.
they then look at the website, it'll show that it's continued, and then the 4 people that were not, or 4 property owners that were not contacted will then be contacted for the next meeting when we actually take testimony.
Right. Yeah, I don't see any issue from sort of the spirit of making it work.
Right, and just making it so that, again, it's just trying to meet the regulations in a way that makes sense. So, Travis, any kind of questions on that or with what we're proposing to do?
No, it's beyond me. Sounds like a plan.
That's exactly what it is a plan so that we meet the intent of our regulations. So, and Jonathan,
Sounds fine to me. It gives the opportunity for the folks that have been notified to just see that it's continued, and then the folks that haven't been notified to not have to catch up on hours of meeting to try to find that time frame or whatever it is. So that sounds
correct.
fine to me.
Yeah, and it'll be continued to a date certain too, and that will be on the town's website. All right. Based on that, Leah, should I just go ahead and read this in?
Please do.
All right. Pursuant to the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act, Grafton Stormwater Management Bylaw, the Grafton Wetlands Protection Bylaw, Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing to act upon a notice of intent, application for a Grafton Stormwater Bylaw permit, application for Grafton Wetlands Bylaw permit for the construction of permanent work paths and improving access roads at 121, 116, 104, and 115 Creeper Hill Road, and 230, 244, 244 rear Worcester Street, Grafton. So I would just ask if the applicant just indicate that they're here, and then we'll just ask you if you'll do a continuance to the next meeting. So is
Just
anyone?
doing-
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm just going to promote Olivia Shaw to speak.
Okay.
Hi, this is Olivia Shaw. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, yes, we are okay with continuing the hearing.
And that would be to our next meeting on September 17th.
Yes, please. And can I just ask a question as well?
Sure.
So is it these people weren't listed on the Grafton certified abutters list? Should we also request certified abutters lists in the neighboring towns, or is using my analysis on Mass GIS to determine the 300-foot abutters sufficient?
I will give you my experience, and this is under our local bylaw, but in other locations, I've had to do get a certified abutters list from an abutting town. I've had to do that on other projects, nothing to do with Grafton. So that has been my experience. So I would suggest that would be the appropriate way of doing it, because then it cannot be questioned if that town gives certified abutters list.
Okay, thank you.
All right. So the applicant has requested a continuance to our next hearing. Do I have a motion for that continuance?
I'll move to continue the hearing to September 17th.
Second.
Right. We have a continuous request and a second. Roll call vote. Patrick,
Yes.
Jonathan,
Yes.
and Travis.
Yes.
Okay. There we go. All right. Next one, Leah.
So this is a similar situation. This is the South Grafton Water District. They had one abutter at the very edge, if you will, of the 300-foot radius that fell in Sutton. that they didn't catch and notify. So again, it is a part of the local bylaw. So I was
Okay.
proposing the same approach here. They'll notify that person for the 9/17 meeting and we take this up then. I don't think they're in attendance tonight to
Okay.
confirm that, but we have been corresponding through email and they were okay with that approach.
Okay, I appreciate that. So let me read this one in. Okay, so pursuant to the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act, Grafton Stormwater Management Bylaw, Grafton Wetlands Protection Bylaw, Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing to act upon a notice of intent, application for Grafton Stormwater Bylaw permit, application for Grafton Wetlands Bylaw permit for the construction of a PFAS water treatment plant at 115 Ferry Street in Grafton. Based upon the conversation that one abutter was required abutter under the local bylaw was not notified in correspondence with the applicant. They're requesting a continuance to our next meeting on September 17th. Do I have a motion?
I'll move to continue the hearing to September 17th.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call vote. Jonathan,
Yes.
Travis,
Yes.
and Patrick.
Yes.
Okay. I am also a yes, the motion carries. Sorry to say this, my screen just went blank.
We can still hear you, but your video's frozen.
Okay. I do not know. Oh, wait a minute. I think
Now you're muted.
Your video's working.
my video's working and my computer went to sleep even though I was actively on it. I am back awake, so we're all good, hopefully for the next few hearings. Okay. All right. So that's that one. That's that one. 810. So this is next one is 8 and 10 Pine Street.
8 and oh, that's a typo. I think it's 8 and 100.
Okay. Not a problem. Let me read that and let's see, that time is 8:10 and we're okay. Pursuant to the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act, the Grafton Stormwater Management Bylaw, Grafton Wetlands Bylaw, Grafton Wetlands Protection Bylaw, Grafton Conservation will hold a public hearing to act upon notice of intent application for a Grafton Stormwater Bylaw permit, application for a Grafton Wetlands Bylaw permit for the property redevelopment to construct residential and retail buildings at 8 and 100 Pine. And who's online to present that?
Hi, my name is Sarah Stein. I'm with O'Connell Development Group for the applicant GSX ODG LLC. Eric Samuel's also with O'Connell Development Group, and Jean Christie with Ty and Bond are also on.
Okay.
So just a little background on this one. This is 8 Pine Street. It was the former state hospital site, for anyone familiar with that. We had previously submitted an NOI and received an order of conditions in 2021. After that, the demolition took place, the site was cleaned up, and then there was a pause on construction. So the site's been clean and paused for about 2 years now. So we're now looking to get started again, but in the meantime, our order of condition lapsed. So this is a reapplication, largely the same information. Jean will get into it in a little bit more detail. There have been a few things that changed since 2021 in terms of the stormwater regulations, and we've taken a look at that and done a new analysis of the wetland delineation. The other thing to just note here is that the DCAM property, the Grafton Jobs Corp, backs up to this property. So it's a DCAM owned property and the tenant is the Department of Labor. So we have been working closely with them and we are close to having an agreement on a temporary construction easement that's needed. And as it speaks to in the NOI, we understand that that would be a condition that would need to be in place before construction starts. But that's something we're actively working on with DCAM and getting closer to. I think that's all, Jean, if you want to get into it further. Thank you.
Sure. Hi, everyone. Jean Christie, Principal Engineer with Ty and Bond. I know probably, I think everybody in the commission has seen this project before, but I am gonna go through the whole thing, kind of soup to nuts, just to remind everybody what the project was and not assume you guys remember anything. Jan, if you're able to pull up sheet C100, it's the existing conditions plan. Just want to orient folks with, the property itself. We know it's the state hospital, the former state hospital. This is the parcel that is up against Pine Street, you know, across from Centennial, or I'm going to get that wrong. I need the picture. You see Green Street's on the left and the Shrewsbury town line. You can see the former existing buildings are there in the dark outline. Pine Street's down at the bottom of the plan, running left to right, with north is going to the left, plan left to here. And then, so this is 8 Pine Street at that property. The property behind it is 100 Pine Street. So while the project is really located on 8 Pine Street, there are pieces, you know, there is some jurisdictional work on 100 Pine Street down in that bottom right-hand corner, which we can get into in a little bit more detail. But as Sarah had mentioned, the buildings have been demolished. There's been some soil remediation for contaminants. The buildings were abated before they were demolished, and there's still some construction construction debris pile on site that will be backfilled into the holes that are left by the building excavations, the building removal. But really, the wetlands are focused on the right-hand side of the page. If you could zoom in a little bit, you can see them a little bit better detail. So the wetlands are located in the southern portion of the site, up against the rail, the MBTA rail line. That's the, you know, those kind of parallel lines running on the east side of the plan there, the right side of the plan there. So Jane, if we want to go to the next couple of sheets, I'm sorry that I don't have a good overall plan. Maybe sheet 103 and 104 are the two we're going to want to look at. So the project is a development of 316 residential housing units and approximately 11,600 square foot footprint of a retail component. This is under the North Grafton Transit Oriented Development. If I got that zoning right. Geared to provide housing with convenient access to the commuter rail line. So on this left-hand side of the page, again, this is the northern side of the page. This is the primary, or the residential building, 4-story residential building, 316 units with a multi-story parking garage in the back. So there's no significant surface parking lot associated with this development. And if you go to the next sheet, Jan, we can see the kind of the project as it impacts wetlands. You'll see across from Centennial Drive, within kind of the middle of the plan in front of you, with the residential building on the left-hand side, and the commercial building on the right-hand side, there is an access road that goes from Pine Street into the DCAM property. There is an access easement through, there today that we are maintaining through construction, to provide DCAM access for some of their larger vehicle deliveries. So the whole right-hand side of this project is really where we have wetland impacts. There is work within the 25 to 100 foot buffer zone. There is no impact within the 25-foot buffer zone. We do respect that no disturb line. The wetlands here are, bordering vegetated wetlands. There's some inland bank and land underwater. These wetlands, as shown here, were delineated in 2020 and 2021. When we, came to Leah with this application as an informal discussion early, she did recommend that we have a professional wetland scientist go back out there, check the wetlands, see if anything has substantially changed. We did have staff on site in July who confirmed that there is no need to update the delineation, that they would have delineated the same today. So there is no plan change here. So you'll notice that these plans are from 2021. We did not update them for this application since nothing changed. So the work within the buffer zone, if you want to zoom in a little bit, Jan, there's some, I'm going to try and go clockwise around the site from the wetlands. So starting on that bottom right-hand corner of the plan, that big open space is an infiltration detention basin. Kind of all, that's the kind of the low point on site. So all of our stormwater from the commercial building does go to that area and is managed in that stormwater basin. The parking here is a 2-level parking. So the ground level is accessed from Pine Street on the right-hand side. There's an upper level deck that's accessed from that interior access drive to the left of the commercial building. Commercial building is, currently a 2-story building, with ground level retail, coffee shop kind of thing to service those who are living on site, walking to the rail line, grabbing a coffee on the way kind of thing. So some convenience retail there. Some other important parts about the buffer zone impacts, we do have retaining walls that are kind of defining that limit of work. You can see the dark lines. One is on the right-hand side of that access drive as you drive in from Pine Street between the 2 buildings. Once that roadway starts to turn to the left, on the right-hand side is a retaining wall, which kind of is defining that impact, and is staying out of the 25-foot no disturb. And then you can see on that, the above or on the top of the page above the parking area, there's another retaining wall as well. Let's see. So stormwater management for the property or for the project, back in 2021, we did have the project peer reviewed by Graves Engineering. We had the whole stormwater system reviewed at that time. We haven't substantially changed things. We were pretty close to still being in compliance with the revised stormwater regs. There were a couple changes that we did make, and they are not shown on these drawings. They are shown on a separate sheet. We found that there's 3 stormwater discharges that go directly to the wetland. One is from the area, the driveway area between that residential building on the left hand side of the page and the property line to the top to page up, which is a minimally treated system with a water quality unit. We're changing that to make it a different water quality unit so that we're meeting the 90% TSS and the 50% or 60% phosphorus removal requirements of the revised regulations. We're also implementing those same treatment units on the other discharges, just to make sure that we are meeting fully those requirements. Those were all detailed in the notice of intent, where there was a separate, there was a stormwater report that we originally prepared, plus a supplemental one that has a graphic that shows where those units are. Otherwise, we didn't have to change anything with the stormwater management system. We're still using infiltration and detention as our primary means of quantity management. And then, water quality units, there's an oil grit separator, the traditional catch basins and such for our water quality improvements. Mass DEP did issue comments, and we were able to respond to them last week. They were actually very similar to the comments they issued back in 2021, with the addition of a couple new ideas. The biggest one, and this is present in a few different comments, was related to where groundwater is. The subsurface investigations we have to date were performed really early in the project, and then as the project developed, our stormwater management systems changed. So where we thought we would infiltrate, we are no longer infiltrating. And so we will need additional subsurface investigations. Under our previous order of conditions, we did have one that required that we perform these investigations prior to construction and have a peer reviewer, opine on them, make sure that they are correct, and that any design modifications that we have to deal with will continue to meet all the state and local stormwater requirements. So we're hoping that we can consider that same kind of condition here. A couple of the other pieces of Mass DEP's comments were making sure that we have the street sweeping requirements fully detailed out in our operation and maintenance plan, and including a map with that. We looked at, one specific outfall that's not using groundwater recharge as a treatment, and we're explaining why we can't do that just because of limited space, and we're able to accommodate our required recharge volume elsewhere on the project. I'm I'm sure I missed something that we need to talk about. But I think those are the big things. So I guess I can turn it back to you all for comments and questions.
So I just have a general question is, have you done a comparison of this compared to your new plans to show where they have changed?
Yeah, it's really, you mean the stormwater discharges?
No, I'm talking the plans. I'm talking about, has the retaining wall moved? Has the limit of work moved? And
They haven't. Not these plans from 2021 are still the plans. We have not changed anything of the project.
Okay, that's exactly what I need to hear, because it's like, you know, there's a big difference between changing out one water quality treatment to something else that gives you, and I'm curious how you're meeting the phosphorus removal, but that's a different issue. But just to, if something has moved, that was one big question. The other question is, I happen to go by this site routinely to get over to Route 20 on a regular basis. Have you done any kind of check on how much area was disturbed and how close you got to the wetlands during the demo and everything else and the piling and all the other kind of stuff? And has there been any erosion into the wetlands based on the large piles that were left?
I think the majority of the work that's happened has happened on the north side of that interior access road. So it's really happened at the buildings. There was definitely some clearing that occurred along Pine Street, closer to Pine Street, but the area, the wetlands, and definitely the 25-foot were not disturbed.
Okay, and that's just more of a to confirm that. And
Yeah.
again, riding by it, and you're kind of looking, going, what's the plan look like, and what is this actual? And it was just, I don't know. It looked like they were getting close to the no disturb. I can't tell you that. That's me driving in a car, looking at a site. So that doesn't really have any weight to it. It's more just a question to make sure to confirm that someone didn't go a little bit aggressive on the clearing and went into either 25-foot or beyond the limit of work that had been proposed.
Yeah, I know that we had a surveyor out there to stake the limit of work before building demolition. So nobody was supposed to go into that anyway. But I do also know that those permanent demarcation barriers that we had included were not installed.
And from my perspective, it's more confirming it as opposed to, and I'm just curious, having watched some of the earthworks go on there, they did substantial, work, kind of not just taking out the buildings, but moving dirt and taking dirt in and a bunch of other things. And it's really about what that interim condition turned out to be. And are you left with anything that you did not anticipate? I don't know how much you've been out to the site, but man, it changed dramatically.
It did change dramatically, and between the soil remediation, there was some lead and arsenic concerns out there. Those pockets were removed, so there's definitely earth changing there. And then of course with building demolition and then backfilling of that material into the building footprint, and this is where it gets kind of complicated with the mass contingency plan type of stuff where we do have permission from the state to put that building demolition debris back into not the wetland, I'm sorry, that was very wrong to say, the building foundations, but they got to be in areas that we're going to put new building or new pavement over. So that is another regulated area here on site.
Right. And again, I understand building debris and how they're classified and that you can use it as fill. It'd be a good idea to have that located on the site just to make sure no one has surprises during construction.
Okay.
I'm sure
Yeah.
there had to be an as-built as part of that permitting process.
It's coming. Yep, it's coming.
Okay. All right, let me go around to the other commissioners to see if they have questions. Jonathan.
No, I don't have any questions. Thank you.
Travis.
No questions.
And Patrick.
No questions.
Leah, you want to give us your report?
Sure. So as Jean mentioned, the DEP comments were very similar to last time. So we actually have a lot of them handled through the conditions that we wrote last time. So if we get to the point of talking through those, I think we have everything covered between what she presented and then conditions in terms of what DEP had to say. The only other thing I had called out was a waiver request for phasing. They need to exceed the 5 acres per phase for phases 3 and 5. So they are requesting a waiver from that.
Okay. Is that alteration already done?
No, the phase 3 is the residential building construction.
Okay.
And then phase 5 would be site restoration. So I mean, I expect that as we're going through phase 3, we're stabilizing everything with, you know, at least seed down, so that the phase 5 assumed everything needed to be fully stabilized as a worst case.
Right. And again, I'm just thinking of yeah, you kind of, you know, midway through your demo or near your end of your demo and all the alterations on site. Now you're picking it up 2+ years later. Just, you know, as far as like having 5 acres, I have no idea how much was disturbed for the original phase. So my question's more about having bad experience with interim conditions previously. I'm a little bit sensitive to, you know, making sure we fully understand what those interim conditions are. And to make sure if there's anything that was left behind that didn't quite conform to your original design, that all of a sudden you're not back in front of us because something wasn't done for whichever phase that you were doing.
Okay.
So, I mean, I guess one question to the rest of the commission is and to Leah also is just, you know, is this something we should just send back to Graves just to say, hey, they're switching out this to meet the 90% and 65% is, you know, the systems that they're proposing is appropriate, that type of stuff. Or just to make sure there's been nothing done in the interim that will create a problem. I guess I'll just go around. Jonathan.
It doesn't sound like a bad idea if we think that it's more than a minor change. I mean, it's been 4 years, 3 to 4 years before last time we saw this site. So
Yeah, it's 2+ years since they did the most of the work.
okay, yeah. So if we're relying on that, or if there's just changes that I'm not sure what the extent of the changes would be, but I don't think it's a bad idea as long as it's copacetic with the rest of the commissioner.
Travis.
Yeah, that works for me. Would that be a condition of the waiver, or would we continue?
And I think that's kind of the question is you know, it's really, you know, this project was kind of put on hold. Now they're restarting it, and it's, you know, and it was caught in the middle, so to speak.
Yeah.
And so, in reality, the existing conditions aren't the existing conditions anymore, but it's somewhere in between the existing condition and where they were moving to with the design. So it's a weird place to be. So that's my apprehension, is just to make sure that nothing was done outside of where it was supposed to be done, to make sure, you know, none of the soils used was an issue, making sure nothing is, you know, nothing was put in where they're doing infiltration, you know, just something that would somehow impact the proposed design.
Yeah.
That's really,
I mean,
and
that's
I'm
fine
not,
with me. It sounds like a good idea.
yeah. And again, I don't, you know, I don't think they need to go and do a full new survey of the whole site to measure the dirt, but need something from the applicant to say, yeah, this is the limit of disturbance. It's within the limit of what was previously proposed. And, and based on the observations, there's nothing here that would prevent from moving forward. It's just been an open site for 2+ years. So, Patrick, anything?
I would agree, given the time and the changing conditions.
And it just happens to be, I literally drive by this 3 to 5 times a week and always look over to see I wonder what's going on, and nothing for the last few years. So, Leah, anything else that we should do? I mean, I guess the question becomes, I totally agree with, any of the previous orders, special conditions we would incorporate into this one. So we're really only looking at the changes. The changes generally is the treatment to meet the MS4 requirements and the updated regulations for the MS4. You're looking for a signed illicit discharge statement, and then the phasing. They need a waiver from the phasing. Is that really what we're talking about?
Correct.
Okay. All right, one last question, and I'll just go around. Who's comfortable with, as part of the conditions, we have Graves take one more look at this, that we'll talk about, talk about the waiver request and have to basically have a motion and grant that, and then pretty much reusing the previous conditions. What are people's feelings to that, and do you think we should take care of that tonight? So, Jonathan.
Have we done that in the past? It'll probably sound like a broken record to Jan, who writes these up, but have we done this in the past where we make the kind of peer review part of the conditions, like a conditional approval based on the peer? Like, what if the peer review flushes something out that we need to talk through that changes the circumstance? Or is it controlled enough because that's kind of my question is, is it controlled enough that the peer review might flush out minor things that can be sorted out between Leah and the applicant? Or is that peer review and that assessment going to pull stuff out that we want to talk about or wants to come back before the commission? I don't want to necessarily slow the process down. Again, just looking to see if this set precedent, like to do it as a condition of, is that kind of the question you're looking at, Sandy?
Yeah. Yes.
That's my take. Is there a precedent there?
And I don't know if, this is a little bit unusual where something stops and they didn't do a continuance, and now we're back in front of basically the same project, but there's a regulation change. That regulation changes water quality. So that's just the TSS removal and phosphorus removal. So what we're asking Graves to look at is confined to that MS4 requirements and those water qualities units. So any kind of, if they say, hey, this particular structure does not meet X, then the applicant needs to come back and find a treatment system that will work for that. And the big one's the phosphorus, because that needs a filtering system. So we're not asking, and hopefully everyone's clear, I'm not asking for them to do a whole new review.
Just check that one item basically,
Just
or
check
those
the change,
yeah.
quote the changes, which would be, my understanding is water quality. They can do one quick, review of the the changes per se, but my understanding is that's the only change. So it is pretty defined on what they're looking at.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you mind if I chime in for a sec?
Please do.
So we have conditioned not like a whole peer review before, but certain aspects of one. And the way I usually word it is like that prior to commencement of work, sometimes we have comment numbers to refer to, so it would be like prior to commencement of work, the applicant has to supply a revised plan to address peer reviewers' comments, number, whatever. And we have to receive that, the peer reviewers sign off, that they are satisfying those comments. And we condition it prior to commencement of work, so they can't start until it's satisfied. We could add language as well that, should the peer reviewer flag something that needs further discussion with the commission, they have to return to a commission meeting.
Right, and we would determine if it's minor or major. So, all right, so that's thank you for that input, Leah. Does that help answer that question, Jonathan?
It does. I think with that being said, it sounds like a reasonable approach.
Okay. Travis, any comments or anything else we should be adding to the conditions?
No, I'm good with that approach though.
Okay. Patrick.
Yes, same. I'm okay with that approach.
Okay, so at this time, I'll open up, if anyone in the public has any questions or comments, please raise your hand. We'll keep an eye, and if you do, we will promote you to attendance, and then we'll answer your questions. So again, kind of the one condition that I'd like to see added is that the applicant and or their engineer review the limits of alteration during the demolition phase and to confirm that the proposed limit of work is how can I phrase it, is within the prior limit of work, and there's no alterations outside of what was previously presented, something like that. Jan, anyone from the public?
Nothing from the public.
All right, great. All right, so Leah, one thing we can do is grant the waiver. Now let's go over what the phasing is and what we're granting. Because I know this is is this a waiver we previously granted?
No, because we codified it since. We used to just have it as a policy when they
Gotcha.
filed before, but now
Okay.
it's actually in the regs.
It's the 5 acres is part of, even though it's our bylaw and we have jurisdiction, or we have the ability to waive and do other things, but it still needs to go through. Okay. All right, so previously, a waiver wasn't requested, but they requested an exemption from our policy, correct?
I don't remember if we did it procedurally like that before or not.
Bottom
but-
line is the phasing's still the same.
Correct.
Okay. Yeah, get to the bottom, right? The phasing hasn't changed. It's just now we're looking to actually have that waiver. I'm just trying to think. Most of the folks here were actually on the commission at that time. Maybe Travis was not on. So, so go quickly around. Jonathan, any issue with the waiver request now that it's codified and we have to actually grant that waiver?
No, I don't think there's an issue there.
Okay, Travis.
No issues
And
from
Patrick.
my perspective.
Okay.
No, I don't. A lot of that
Yeah.
area is open already, kind of, isn't it?
Oh yeah, it
Yeah.
is.
So in that case, no issues.
Okay. And we haven't seen any dramatic issues with the wetlands at this point. So, having gone around, do I have a motion to grant a waiver from the 5 acres for the phasing?
So moved.
Okay. In a second,
Second,
we have a motion and a second. Roll call vote. Jonathan,
yes.
Patrick,
Yes.
Travis,
Yes.
And I'm a yes for the waiver's been granted. Next one, Leah, can we just recap what the conditions are at this point? So we can get them
Sure.
all in.
Do you need me to read from the old order, or can I just say we would be utilizing what was in the old order and then proceed from there?
I would say use what was in the old order that we had already voted on,
Okay.
and then go beyond that.
Okay, so we would build off of those conditions and findings, and add. Let's see, where are we? Revised site plans, including the additional water quality features to meet the new stormwater bylaw regs, shall be provided prior to commencement of work. A signed illicit discharge statement shall be provided prior to commencement of work. The applicant shall check the current limit of disturbance and ensure that it did not encroach on the previously approved limit of disturbance. What else?
And then just the peer review.
The peer review, right, we will send the proposed plans to our stormwater peer reviewer and make sure that it is satisfactory for our stormwater bylaw updates. And if the design is not found to be satisfactory and results in a substantial change, the applicant shall return to the commission for discussion.
All right, so I'll go back to the applicant. Jean, how do those conditions sound?
I can't speak for Sarah, but they work for me.
Okay.
Yeah, sound good. Thank you.
All right. Having said that, do I have a motion to close the hearing and issue the order with the the additional discussed special conditions?
So moved.
Second?
Okay.
Second.
So we have a motion and a second. Roll call vote. Travis,
Yes.
Patrick,
Yes.
and Jonathan.
Yes.
All right. So hopefully this project goes ahead and doesn't actually get stopped again. Good luck on that.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your time.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. So. All right, what's up next?
We have one continued hearing, which is UPS, and we have 4 action items.
Okay. All right, let me go to here. Okay. All right, why don't I have? Okay, we'll start here. All right, pursuant to the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act, Grafton Stormwater Management Bylaw, Grafton Wetlands Protection Bylaw, Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing to act upon a notice of intent. Application for Grafton Stormwater Bylaw permit, an application for Grafton Wetlands Bylaw permit for the construction of warehouse at 12 Centennial Drive, 36R Nelson Street, 83 Westboro Road, 105 and 105R Westboro Road. And who's here to discuss that?
Good evening. This is John Perry with Langen Engineering. How are you?
Good.
And also here with Greg Hotchmuth from Epsilon and Jonathan Scott from Prologis and Hannah Scher from my team at Langen. They're on the line with me. And we sent over some just a couple of quick slides to Jan earlier today. Jan, if you could pull those up for us, that'd be great. And if you recall, we were here presenting a couple of weeks back at the last hearing. And the main topic of its discussion was the waiver request for the 5 acres of disturbance. And we had presented a construction sequencing plan and went through some methodologies of how the contractor is going to sequence the construction and limit disturbance to the extent feasible. There's some additional detail requested by the commission. We've gone back to the contractor since that time and have updated our sequencing plan and provided a memo to explain that further. If you go to the next slide, Jan, please. And this probably looks familiar. We showed this last time, although it is just ever so slightly updated. And what we've done is, again, refined the contractor just to make sure that this is realistic and buildable and is the best we can do from a standpoint of limiting disturbance while construction is ongoing. And the couple of subtle differences here are, as you can see in the number one area where we showed previously our staging area, in the trailer parking area along Centec Drive there, we had, I believe, originally thought that would be kind of done last, but that actually is going to work out as a really good construction trailer like field office area. So we've included that in our step one here of setting up the site for staging and just kind of office trailers there. So we've kind of combined one and what used to be number 9 there. In an employee parking lot area, which is southernmost on the plan, that area will be, I believe the last time we presented that as kind of being phased towards the last part of the construction. The current plan is to tree cut in that area and use it for like stump grinding operations and some tree clearing staging. It would still be, the stumps would all remain, ground cover would remain, but we would just open that area up as far as tree clearing goes, so we could use it for that type of operations. Everything else is the same. And if you go to the next sheet here, just zooming in on some of the detail, try to blow this text up as much as we could. I know it's still a little hard to see, but I wanted to point out a few additions. Oh yeah, that's great. So on the left side there with the numbers 1 through 7, that's exactly what I just explained with the slight differences in the sequencing. But under the general notes there, we've included more detail. A few of these notes were on the original plan, but we wanted to also, I think there's some questions regarding what will be actually on site for, extra erosion control systems to be used in case of, pop-up storm or some type of emergency. So we've added information to that effect. Now I'm just going to go through these bullets one at a time here. The first one is just noting that temporary sedimentation basins will be installed and implemented. Some of the permanent basin areas will be used for temporary stormwater, construction stormwater basins. They'll be protected with filter fabric, and they'll be in stone as well, and they'll be cleaned and reconstructed in the final condition. Those are the first 2 bullets essentially. The third bullet is new, and as the contractor's building the site in lifts in the fill areas, they'll be grading ever so slightly inward towards the site. So as they're building it up, they think of it as like kind of steps. They need to compact vertically on a horizontal plane. They're not going to be building slopes. They'll be building it kind of like almost like a staircase, if you will. But each lift will be graded ever so slightly inward, so they can direct stormwater flow away from the wetlands and towards the temporary sedimentation basins. And they'll be done through a series of swales with check dams. They'll be stabilized as well. temporary stabilization methods will be varied, but we'll be using stump grindings, crushed stone and blast rock, which there will be plenty of, erosion control blankets and hydroseeding or mulch as needed. Mostly, we envision using stump grindings and the crushed stone or blast rock. Again, a vast majority of the site is going to be exposed rock, and then the rest of it in the areas we are filling will be building the fill area up with that crushed rock. So pretty quickly in the process, we'll have a lot of crushed rock on the surface as opposed to silty material that can wash away. We're also going to keep an extra 500 feet of silt sock on site and an extra 1,000 feet of silt fence on site in a covered storage container, like a Connex box, that can be used to supplement erosion control systems as needed. We're also going to leave 100 cubic yards of stump grindings on site to supplement erosion systems as needed as well. They can be used for ground surfacing, building berms, building check dams, what have you. There will be a very detailed SWIP plan completed that will be followed. And a few other things that I wanted to mention too, just to remind, these are the additional items that we've proposed in addition to our original erosion control plans. We've also added, if you could zoom out, Jan, just a little bit on here. We'll be building berms too on the along the long thin wetland series that is between the employee parking area and the main warehouse area that kind of goes diagonally north to south. We'll be building berms along the limit of work there, so that we ensure that any runoff will be running along those berms as opposed to in towards the wetlands as well. So all that will be the method used to minimize disturbance, maximize maintaining stumps in the ground, maintaining and using crushed rock. There'll also be intermittent rows of silt socks, which were shown on our erosion control plans. We feel we have a very robust plan, and we will be taking great care. The contractor will be taking great care to make sure that this is done in compliance with this plan and minimizing any potential for runoff to the wetlands. So next slide, please. And just one other thing we want to present here. And this sheet we showed last time, and it shows the porous pavement areas, it shows the rain garden, it shows the new wetland replication area that we discussed last time, and I believe was well received. One thing this shows in addition, and this came up, it was a question from the Shrewsbury Conservation Commission, in the blue, like the royal blue color. They had asked, well, what if any wildlife ends up somehow in the employee parking lot? Are there flush curbs so that smaller critters, if there are any, would be able to get back out of the parking lot and back into the wetland areas? And we pointed out a few areas where we do have flush curbing, specifically page right there where we have the emergency access road, and then a long strip where we have our accessible parking. That's all going to be flush curbing. And then we included another one just in case any critters wander into the parking area, which I feel is unlikely, but again, could happen. Another curb cut there, kind of page left as well. So those are the updates. We have provided formal responses to all of the DEP comments. We feel we've resolved all of those comments, which were all minor in nature. We have resubmitted all of our information to Graves Engineering. Again, it was a very, all of those comments were very, very minor as well. We're just waiting on their review letter back to us, and we feel that we should be getting a clean letter, peer review letter quickly here. So with that, I would love to answer any questions.
Thank you for the presentation. I have 2 quick questions on your erosion control plan, and it's more about implementation than what's the content of it. Which is, are you going to delegate the responsibility of monitoring the erosion control to the contractor, or will you have a third party consultant doing the review of the erosion control? Who's the designated person responsible for it?
The contractor will be, the 24-hour emergency response responsibility. There's not a designated party for weekly inspections yet. We can certainly have a discussion of who that will be.
And again, I'm not looking to direct a certain person or whatever. It's more like who's going to be responsible for doing those walkthroughs, how are they going to get reported out, and how are things going to get updated on a site that's going to change, if not weekly, on a daily basis.
Yeah, it'll be someone that's certified through the EPA's program to do so.
Okay. And then just your coverage on weekends, because it does rain on the weekends.
Yep.
When contractors aren't there. So just curious what the plan is for weekends.
The contractor who's going to be the stormwater, the responsible stormwater party will have, someone designated as their 24-hour, 7-day-a-week person that can react to issues.
And I'm less worried about reacting to an issue that's already happened and more interested in someone watching the weather to see if there's going to be 4 inches on Saturday night and having someone out there to prevent the issues from ever happening.
Oh, 100%. Yes, that's going to be occurring as well.
Yeah. And the only other thing, which is a question on you indicated that you're looking to use some of your proposed basins as a temporary sedimentation. Are those basins infiltration basins?
No, the temporary sedimentation areas will not be infiltration areas. They'll be if those are implemented in the same area as our post-construction infiltration basins, they would be lined with fabric, filter fabric. They'd be stabilized. There'd be light equipment on there, and that would all be completely taken out. All the silt would be completely taken out. The filter fabric liner would be removed. That would all be tilled up and rebuilt according to the plans.
Typically in the past, I mean, I certainly don't have an issue with it. Typically in the past, we've had a condition that says you have to be at least, your sedimentation basin has to be at least 12 inches above your proposed infiltration basin bottom of the elevation so that you're not ripping things out and expecting that surface to infiltrate. You're actually having to over excavate. I mean, it's a fairly straightforward protection, but you're letting the soil protect the soil underneath it and stuff. So in addition to everything else you would be doing in the sedimentation basin. That was kind of my quick questions. I will go around based on what was presented tonight if any of the other commissioners have any questions. Patrick. And actually, let me take one step back. Patrick, you are not eligible to vote. If you wanted to have a question, you can certainly ask it as a citizen, but because of the number of hearings missed, you won't be able to vote on this particular project. Sorry about that. I didn't catch that quick enough. Jonathan, any questions?
No, I didn't have anything additional.
Okay, Travis?
Leah, given the size of the site and the complexities, are you and or Jan able to inspect the site, or is there some other consideration?
So I was going to suggest wetland and engineering peer review site visits, and some of which I'll probably be along for, and we'll be coordinating with Shrewsbury as well.
Okay, that would address my question.
And
Nothing
just
else
like,
from me then.
thanks, Travis. And just like me driving by that mixed use development we just looked at with the residential and commercial building, I go up that roadway all the time. So I'll get to take a look at what's going on in the site too. So Leah, I guess one of the things is that we're still waiting for Graves to respond to the last comments that.
Yes.
Okay.
So yeah, Graves is reviewing their response to comments now.
Yep.
Art issued comments that I incorporated into my notes, and as he mentioned, they have addressed the DEP comments.
Okay. Is there should we be, going over like some of the findings and what waivers need to be done or special conditions, or should we wait till we get Graves' letter back?
I think we could wait. We are taking care of a couple things in the background at the staff level. We're waiting on waiver fee to arrive as an example. So a
Okay.
little bit of this is still to be cleaned up in the background.
Okay.
I
So
think that waiver fee went out last week, I think, so you should
yeah,
have that maybe
We-
tomorrow.
okay, we checked
you don't-
today and it wasn't there, but it should be here any day.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, we do expect like I said before, with the Graves peer review that we've satisfied all comments at this point. Obviously we need them to confirm that, but
Yep.
I think we're definitely looking for whatever movement we can get on drafting the order of conditions.
Yeah, I think that, obviously we have a working list of conditions and other things and so forth. And I think once we get the Graves review, the next meeting will be more concentrated on going through the conditions and the findings and going through the waiver requests and voting on those. And then, discussing, what Leo was just talking about as far as having engineering and wetland peer reviewers do periodic site visits. So,
Yep, I think that's fine. I do believe at this point we've answered all questions regarding the waiver, the 5-acre waiver request. Don't know the commission's feeling on checking that box and seeing if we can clear out that issue tonight.
so kind of, you heard a couple of my kind of minor questions around that. I think the bigger part for me is if we have engineering and wetland peer reviewers doing scheduled, site visits or site visits after, an inch of rainfall or some specific threshold, that would make me feel much better about the erosion control and that waiver. So let me check with the commission. Also at this time, I'll just put it out there for any of the public. If you happen to be online and you have any questions, please feel free to raise your hand and we'll get to you to hear your questions and hopefully respond to them. So let me just go around as far as specifically around the waiver request for the phasing. So, Jonathan, any comments, questions around that particular waiver request?
No, based on the plan that they presented, as long as it's copacetic with staff, then with Leah and Jan, I don't see an issue with that.
All right. Travis?
Yeah, I don't know enough about the peer review and how it's tied to the waiver request. I guess that would be my only concern. But if staff are okay with it, I'll go along with it.
So Leah, tell me if I'm incorrect. Basically, you're looking to have our peer reviewers periodically go out to the site to check during construction to see if they're following basically the erosion control plan and phasing plan to make sure that nothing's getting out of hand.
Yeah, so I mean, the two are a little more specifically focused, so Art would be checking. You know,
Correct.
if they're working on the replication area, or, you know, are they having any impacts on wetlands? Jeff would be looking more specifically at the construction of infrastructure, and things of that nature, but they both also look at general site compliance. And Jan and I would be out on some of those as well. I've spoken with the Shrewsbury conservation agent and would probably be coordinating on some visits also. But I do echo your concern, Sandy, about having a dedicated monitor who's planning for coming storms, not just responding.
Right. Yeah, it's too late if you're just cleaning up the mess. Yeah. Okay.
Sandy, just to add to that, I mean, from my experience on the construction side in general, I mean, wouldn't that be the site superintendent that is looking at a 2-week look ahead in the weather and whatnot that has to coordinate that? And could it just be a coordination item between the site superintendent, if that applicant is amenable to that, and the conscom, or is that beyond that? You know, could they send pictures and say, yeah, we know we're going to get a hurricane or something, so we've done this scope, or is that not how we would typically? Do we need to go see it with hands-on and eyes-on? You know, normally the site superintendent would document most of those items, at least in my side of the world. So I'm just wondering if that's typically how that would get dealt with, or if we need to have that other level. I know it's a big site, maybe site superintendents or whatever, but I don't know, Sandy, if that's an avenue.
Yeah, that's Jonathan. I'll get to you in one moment. Thank you for raising your hand. From my perspective, on a site this large with this amount of earthwork, something's going to go wrong. And the
Sure.
more you have an independent view of it to say, hey, why aren't you doing this? What is going on here? That makes a big difference. Yes.
Okay.
Should the superintendent be doing all those things? Should they be looking at what the weather is and what storms are coming? Yes. Dealing with a site that's 80 acres right now, and they're rolling the dice. So yes, the answer is yes, but it doesn't always happen. So,
Understood.
Jonathan,
Okay.
yeah, Jonathan, please, if you have a question or a comment to add.
Yes, Madam Chair. Jonathan Scott with Prologis. Also a previous general contractor, so very familiar with the practices of opening up very large sites. I just wanted to confirm too that as part of the process and speaking with the general contractor, that the superintendent and field engineers and everyone else out there also help monitor the site. As part of our jobs, we keep live cameras on every single project that we have. We have weather stations on every single project that we have as well, just for these matters. So, I mean, we take these things very seriously. We're not quite the ragtag group, and just wanted to give the commission just a little bit of comfort that again, we're very, very comfortable in this. We're 100% okay with the third parties wanting to come out and check. I just want to make sure that we don't put too much in place to actually keep them from monitoring even more or have too many checkpoints, because this is something that they're definitely going to keep an eye on. And I think we put a good plan in place here, but wanted to give you just a little bit of comfort level coming from us that not only are they going to monitor everything, it's going to be written into the site work contractor's contract to make sure they're performing this work correctly.
And just as you mentioned that you'll have cameras, basically, whether it's mounted on a pole or whatever. Will you be doing drone flights regularly to check on your construction?
We do. We fly drone sites regularly. Our GC, that's part of their it's part of our weekly progress reporting, along with photos daily and superintendent reports every day.
And that would be extremely helpful if you just shared some of those on a regular basis, the drone flights, just to understand the stage of construction. And again, it's not, it's, this is a courtesy thing. Understand that you're doing it for your own reasons, but it may help. I know, working on very large sites, getting the drone, aerial photos are extremely helpful to understand where you're at and to potentially identify things that's going, that maybe need attention or something. That would be helpful if you could share that. I'm glad to hear that you are doing those active and proactive things. And I get it. I've worked on large sites with fabulous contractors, and this is never an issue. And then all you need is one bad sub, and it throws things into the wrong way. So I'm being a little bit cautious here, but that's what my role is, as far as, being on the commission and protecting the wetlands. So
Absolutely. Thank you very much for your consideration.
Jan, has anyone from the public indicated they had any questions?
Nothing from the public.
Okay. One last question, Leah. I know that you're kind of pulling together, a list of kind of action items or things that have been met already, but you've got the waiver list, looking at the findings and special conditions. When do you think that's going to be wrapped up, and will we be able to share that with the applicant prior to our next meeting?
I can certainly try. I've also started a giant Google Doc with the Shrewsbury agent to try to collaborate on conditions as well.
Right. And again, that's great, because we don't want to have conflicting conditions, but also to the applicant, we're not trying to share things, because sometimes the wording, want to make sure that you have input. Doesn't mean we'll always listen to you, but on some things, you may have some comments that we actually appreciate and can update the special conditions to make sure it's clear if they're not. So we would like to have that dialogue with you, hopefully at the next meeting, and hopefully Leah will be able to coordinate with Shrewsbury so we're on the same pages. Any questions on that?
Yeah, I guess anything, Leah, I know that lots and lots of information here, and as you mentioned too, you're coordinating with Shrewsbury. So as you get to a point where you have something you can share to us, with us, I guess ideally before we meet next, we can have a quick look at what some of the conditions might be. We can have a a good discussion, just to make it our time next time we all get together as fruitful as possible. That'd be great.
Yeah, and any comment you can, respond to us in writing, but any deliberation needs to be done at the public hearing, which but just want to make that clear.
Yep.
Okay. Having said all of that, are you looking to continue to our next meeting on September 17th?
We are. And one last question, I just going back to the waiver request, the vote for that, I suppose. It seems like I'm picking up that you are going to be more comfortable with that, finalizing that once we work out some of the conditions regarding erosion
Correct.
control monitor or things like
Yep.
that. Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
Understand.
Okay. And the things like disturbance within the no disturbed areas. I mean, those things, there are certain times where you can't avoid it just basically if you're crossing someplace, but those are things that we'll look at that. And as Leah said, she's got a nice long list here. So, okay. But yeah, so if you're requesting a continuation, there's been no other attendees have raised their hand. So do I have a motion? Whoops, I'm sorry, Jonathan, are you raising your hand again, or has it just been up there for a while?
No, I am. I'm sorry. Just one more time, kind of similar to the last time before we continue. I just want to make sure, and sorry if I do sound like I'm repeating myself, if there's anything that we can do, just to make sure that we're not missing anything on the waiver. I put a lot of focus there just because we do care how important it is to the commission, and we took great efforts in trying to make sure we shared a plan and a process that the commission could wrap their hands around. So the only thing I don't want to leave this meeting on is not understanding fully if there's anything else within our ability outside of the commission speaking that we can do to make you feel comfortable to go ahead and vote for that, because that's just something that feels like we hit it. We didn't have quite the list from last time. But we took care of everything that we thought was mostly important. And I just want to make sure we're not missing the mark and the same thing happen when we come back in front of the commission next time.
Not that I can definitively say nothing else would come up, but I mean, to me, it's been pretty well, reviewed and discussed, and we're at the point where it's finalizing, the conditions, and then it's voting on the waivers. I understand why you're asking that question. I'd like to think that we don't play games with those type of things, and once we're satisfied, we'll do our findings, do our waiver requests. We're not looking to hold up anything. We're just making sure that the I's get dotted and the T's gets crossed.
Thank you very much. That's very helpful, just to make sure we put all of our efforts in the right places.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. Based on that, do I have a motion to continue the hearing to September 17th?
So moved.
Do I have
Second.
a second? All right, we have a motion and a second. One quick thing. I will be traveling on the 17th, but I should be in a hotel room where I can call in and participate on the 17th. So hopefully that works out and I don't have any issues with Wi-Fi or anything. So that's just an FYI. But we should be all set otherwise, and other than that. We have a motion and a second. Roll call vote for the continuance. Travis,
Yes.
Jonathan,
Yes.
Patrick. I'm sorry, Patrick. I don't need to call on you for this one. And then I am also a yes. The motion carries.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Good night.
Okay, Leah, what's the next couple of action items?
We have a request for an extension for 19 George Hill Road. It's a single family house. You guys might recall, with a really complex driveway with some stormwater features off of it because of the slope. Their permits are due to expire in October, so they're requesting their first 3-year extension due to supply chain issues. They have started work on the site, but they're just at the beginning stages now.
Okay. I appreciate the fact they actually did it ahead of time. And the way you're supposed to do it, so that's great. So let's does anyone have any comments or questions on this? Jonathan?
No, sounds reasonable.
Travis?
Nope, no questions.
Patrick?
No questions.
Do I have a motion?
I will move to grant the 3-year extension for 19 George Hill Road.
Do I have a second? Motion and a second. Roll call vote. Travis?
Yes.
Jonathan?
Yes.
Patrick?
Yes.
I am also a yes. Motion carries. Leah, next one on New England Power.
We have a request for minor change. We have a couple folks online who might want to chime in on this, but I'll start the summary. So we previously approved a minor change for them to add their alternate access route back in that goes near a potential vernal pool. Matting was to be installed outside the vernal pool season. I believe they have already gone ahead and accomplished that. We also said matting was to include accommodation for any amphibians, and the area was not to be traversed by equipment during the 2 active vernal pool time periods. Then they had conversations with their construction crews and determined that the time of year restrictions aren't feasible for their project's timeline. So they are proposing a full-time wetland scientist to be on site to monitor the area during those active vernal pool seasons to ensure no amphibian mortality. They're also going to install the timber matting in that area as a bridge with gaps underneath for the amphibians to pass. They did also add to the request that they be able to have limited overnight storage of heavy equipment, tools, and culverts on the matting with secondary spill prevention measures installed beneath them for about a 2 to 3 week period on either side of Fisherville Pond. At maximum, it would be 6 weeks, just because the upland staging area is very far away from this location. And just as an additional point for consideration, their wetland scientists did note that it's nearly 100% shrub cover in the area of this potential vernal pool this past August. So it likely isn't suitable habitat for a certified vernal pool. And it was also surveyed in spring of 2020, and no vernal pool habitat was found at that time. So like I said, there's a couple folks online they might want to add to that if they wish, but that's the minor change that they're looking for the commission's approval on.
Okay, so if they're online, please let us know if you have anything to add.
Yeah, thank you, Leah. I think you covered it, so that's all for me, but I'm happy to discuss any questions.
I just have a quick one. When you say full-time wetland scientist, what do you mean by that?
Okay, so yeah, that's a good thing to clarify. So what we mean is anytime that access road near the vernal pool would need to be traversed between September 1st to October 15th, so that amphibian migration period, that is whenever those mats are in use, we would have a wetland scientist from my company, which is Environmental Consulting, go out and do a sweep prior to equipment driving over the mats, and then also be on site while any equipment is driving over the mats. And then the rest of the time there would be a barricade so that crews wouldn't be tempted or anything to use it when we weren't on site.
Okay, and my other question is about the limited overnight storage of heavy equipment, tools, and culverts. My question to you, is this just purely convenience, or is there a specific benefit to the wetlands protection that it would want you to store those particular equipment and tools?
Yeah, that's a great question. The question or the request came from the construction team, and the reasons I was given was just safety purposes is one of them. The drill rig has to be anchored and leveled every time it's installed. And so for days where it's being used multiple days in a row, that takes a lot of time. And so they raised some safety concerns about having to move that every single day, just at the end of the workday with crews being tired and everything like that. So that was one concern. And then the other is it would speed up construction. So it would allow the wetland matting to be removed much faster than it would be otherwise. That's my understanding, but I can talk more with the crews if need be.
Okay. Let me just go around to commissioners to see if they have any other questions. Patrick.
No, I I don't think I have any questions.
Travis.
I guess my only concern is the wetland scientist also familiar with amphibian relocation protocols? Usually
So it
that's
would be
different field.
Yeah, it would be a professional wetland scientist, so they should be familiar with all the vernal pool regulations. And then the other thing is we already did install the mats with gaps underneath them, so that ideally any amphibian passage would happen underneath the mats instead of on top of. And I did share a best management practice picture if anyone would like to see that. I think, Jan, you might have that somewhere. It's CM2. So yeah, so that would be our proposal, is to have a professional wetland scientist, or a wetland scientist who was trained for 3 or more years. And then also to have those gaps underneath the mats.
As long as they're familiar with species relocation protocols, because that's biology and wetland scientists are usually different fields, so that's my
Right.
only concern there. Also, are there any monitoring reports that the wetland scientist would draft? And if so, can those be shared with staff?
Yeah, for sure. So we normally go out there every week anyways, and we have a wetland scientist do a full inspection of the site. And that gets shared with the whole environmental team from National Grid as well as the construction team. So we can, it would be very, very easy for us to have the scientist write up a report for any time that access is traversed between September 1st and October 15th, and share a report with the commission.
All right. Nothing else for me, Sandy.
Okay. Leah, anything, any of your recommendations or anything else?
I do just want to add that there is the second date range of March 1 to June 1. I know, I think it's their intention to be finished with this before then, but just so that we're noting both of those time periods.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, anything to get the work done faster, I think is probably a benefit to the impacts to the wetlands. And getting some sort of monitoring report would be helpful to keep track of what's going on. Okay.
I had a quick question and a comment, if it's all
Sure.
right. So Olivia, what are the spill protection measures or prevention measures installed beneath? So are they putting like a full, is it like an oil or gas control system? Like, is there a full like plastic or poly system that's going beneath, this heavy equipment, an excavator, drill rig, etc. So oil and gas aren't dropping out? Is it under specific areas? It's just kind of, I don't know how specific you're getting in the actual, what I'm looking at from the report, is obviously might be a little condensed, Leo, just kind of what the measures are, but I just don't know if they've been spelled out as to what that is and how that works. If it's being stored out there for, time during that period.
Yeah, thank you for the question. And just also apologies, I can't figure out how to turn on my video, but so it's a pretty rudimentary spill protection measure that's in the National Grid BMP. And it's honestly just installing a kiddie pool or something equivalent to that underneath any part of the machinery that would drip. And those would be left overnight and then checked in the morning, obviously. So that's the general procedure that they use.
So if there was a large excavator or something out, I mean, I'm not sure what the largest piece of equipment is that's out there, but if it has grease and fuel or something that's attached to a track that's out on the edge of it, and then there's a motor that's underneath it, I mean, there's like a lot of kiddie pools. But I'm just wondering how that would be dealt with to control that. If you've got grease on fittings that's underneath different parts of it, you can't. I was thinking it's going to sit in a over poly or something like that might catch that. I don't know what the typical is done. But again, it just wanted to understand if it's just a kiddie pool under the engine, so it's catching drips and whatever of oil, then that's probably one thing, but I'm not sure if that's been discussed in detail to understand if we're putting this and leaving it overnight or for multiple weeks and it's dripping from someplace that's not known, how would that be known to the team out in the field if the kiddie pool's just under the motor?
Yeah, that's a good point. So the general procedure that they start with is that kiddie pool. But if there's something else that would make everyone more comfortable, I'm sure we could pass that on and people would be comfortable with that. The other thing is, I'm thinking they'll be on the mats, so they can do a visual inspection of the mats, so it wouldn't just necessarily disappear into the ground. So the idea behind that would be for very small drips that they would notice that as it's happening and recognize that another kiddie pool or other something would need to be put under that. But I'm not sure if that really answers your question or if that's enough.
I mean, I don't know what's typically done in the field. If tarps or large something that would catch drips is a better solution, but I'm not going to delve into that if that's not a concern of staff and the rest of the folks. I was hoping that you'd say that the less times that they have to traverse all that matting, the less chance they'd have to run over a bunch of amphibians. So, but it seems I get it. It's if you leave the equipment out there, A, it might make it go faster, and B, it would have less chances of hitting them and passing. And as long as it's stored properly and any drips and potential leaks are contained, then I don't have any other questions. I just think that it might be worth review. Or Leah, I don't know if you have any additional thoughts, or Sandy, if you have any additional thoughts. I'm just thinking that it's a large piece of equipment. It's 15 years old. It's got grease points all around that machine. If there's a drip or if there's a leak and it's leaking directly into the wetlands because it's stored there for 3 weeks and it's not caught because it's just not showing up, when they're working on it. That's my concern, is that you're dumping a bunch of stuff in there without knowing it. So I don't know, a tarp or a piece of poly might be a better solution, but that's just my comment or my question.
Yeah, even if it's just something there that you could see it.
Okay.
As
Plywood,
opposed-
something.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
I can
No other
definitely,
questions?
thank you. Yeah, I can talk to Cruz about that for sure.
Leah, anything else?
Nope, that's all I have.
Okay. So I've gone around. I think everyone's kind of voiced it, and yeah, maybe a little bit more attention on making sure the heavy equipment is not leaking any fluids would be welcomed. But other than that, the minor change is really giving them permission to store that with, as stated here, just a way to monitor that and for spill prevention. Nothing else here. I'm just looking through the change again. Do I have a motion to approve the request for the minor change?
I'll make a motion to approve the minor change as proposed and discussed for New England Power Company, Fisherville Pond.
Second?
Second.
Motion is second. Roll call vote. Jonathan?
Yes.
Travis?
Yes.
Patrick?
Yes.
I am also a yes. The motion carries.
Thank you.
All right. Leah, next up.
Yeah, if we just skip over appointing reps for a second, because I think Jean has hung on here for the last action item. We have a request for a certificate of compliance to close out the old order for 8 and 100 Pine Street. So
Oh,
I
okay.
had her put this through kind of twofold, a partial request for the completed building demolition and site clearing work. But then we would also check the other checkbox that the order and permits have lapsed because they expired after that work. And so then we can have a finding that the remainder of the work is refiled under, and we can give all the new permit numbers that we are that we voted on earlier tonight. Sorry, that was very rambling.
It's been a long night.
Yes.
Understood. And you have a lot of stuff that you gotta do over the next few weeks. Because all this long discussion produces a heck of a lot more work for you than the rest of us. All right. I guess, I mean, this is more procedural to kind of clear up the record and,
Correct.
okay. Does anyone have any questions? I'm looking at shaking heads,
Nope.
speaking
I won't
voices.
ask about drops. I won't ask about drops of oil or anything under this one.
No, there isn't. Yeah, this one is just cleaning up paperwork. So,
Just
but
made a
it's
laugh out of
important.
Travis.
Yeah.
That was a good one. I'm glad you went there. No, nothing from me. Nothing
Yeah.
from me.
No,
Yeah.
I mean, this is one of those things that is very important to staff, and so that when they
Yeah.
go check in 3 years, they figure out what the heck happened. So, um, I certainly don't have any issue with that. So, can I have a motion for the request for certificate of compliance for 8 and 100 Pine Street?
So moved.
Second.
There we go. Roll call. Travis,
Yes.
Patrick,
Yes.
Jonathan,
Yes.
and I'm also a yes. So, how's that, Leah? Does that?
Perfect.
All right. Do we need to talk about reappointments?
Yeah, so we already reappointed you to CPC, but we still haven't appointed someone to OSRC or LQC for this fiscal year.
Okay.
I did talk to Patrick through email. He said he's willing to swap open space for Lake Quincy, if that's agreeable to anybody else. But we just got to figure out who takes those two.
Okay. So the open space it's not in an active cycle right now, right? Because they just approved it.
They're
more
not
about-
actively they are not actively renewing the plan anymore. They already did that. Now it's more like ensuring the plan gets implemented.
Implementation. Okay.
Right.
So is there anyone looking for getting involved in the open space?
If Patrick wants to switch, I can do that unless Jonathan wants to do it.
They're trying to get me to join this new audit thing. It's like the cost estimators version of doing building audits. So I'm contemplating that piece right there and trying to get more information on it. So I may be joining a different commission through that realm and staying on I want to stay here too, obviously, but
Yeah.
picking that up as something to help, as long as it doesn't interfere with my company's ability to bid on work in the town if that ever comes up, which is one of my main questions that they haven't answered yet. But so my plan was to try to help in that way. So if Travis and Patrick want to switch, I'm not going to stand in the way there.
Yeah, that's right up your alley. I mean, that's value to the town. So
It is, as long as it's not detrimental to if my boss calls me and says, we got this, can we pursue this? We want to use an estimator on this project or something. And,
yeah,
well,
it's like when someone calls me about a project, I just say, don't talk to me. All right. I'm going to recuse myself, but don't talk to me about this project.
that might be what I have to do. But yeah, it's all about trying to determine value of so I'd probably pursue that piece and again, let Travis and Patrick switch if that's what they want to do. Have we found any potential new members?
It's a great question.
I haven't heard a word. That doesn't mean that people haven't sent in the I'm interested form. Sometimes they come to me, sometimes they just stay in the TA's office. So I can ask the question, but I haven't heard of anyone.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just trying to think if there's anyone I know. I don't have anyone on the top of my head either. So, yeah, it would be nice to fill out.
I emailed a handful of folks who have been on this commission and had to drop for various reasons, but said that they wished they didn't have to at the time. So I said, hey, do you want to come back? But
Oh, that's actually a good thing. Yes.
no takers so far, but we'll see.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, we'll just have to, if anyone, in a casual conversation you have with someone in town and you know they're in town, just bring it up.
When I walk around my neighborhood to get my steps in, I always run into people, and if they're in the park or wandering around, comes up in conversation, or if someone complains about something about Parks and Rec or something, you should join the conscom and voice all these things and
Absolutely.
be part of the
Yep.
solution.
Yep.
So
democracy starts here in the small town.
yes, it does.
So
Yes, it does.
anything else?
We do have to take motions to appoint reps for
Okay.
the fiscal year.
So for Patrick and so you're good going to Lake Quinconsin? Yeah, I can't even say it. Quinsigamond Commission.
Yeah, that sounds fine.
Okay. And then and thank you for doing that. And Travis, and you're good for the open space.
Yeah, we'll give it a
Okay.
try for a while.
Sounds good. And so do we have a motion?
Should I make it because they're the ones
Yeah.
switching? I'll make a motion to appoint Patrick to the Lake Quinsigamond Commission for fiscal year, federal year, fiscal year 2025, and Travis to the Open Space Commission for fiscal year 2025.
And I'll second that just to, not quite procedure, but that's okay. Roll call vote. Jonathan.
Yes.
I'm a yes. Go to Travis
I'm a yes.
and Patrick.
Yes.
Here we go. So Jan, are you thinking of moving to Grafton so you could become a member?
I think I'm okay being paid for this.
You want to enjoy the volunteerism?
The smart one. Okay. Having said that, there's, I believe, nothing left, Leah,
Correct.
which means there's only one thing left to do.
Motion to adjourn.
Do I get a second?
Second.
I
I'll
got a motion
second
and a
that.
second. Roll call vote. Patrick.
Yes.
Travis.
Yes.
Jonathan.
Yes.
I'm a yes.